This public hearing regarding the 2013 tax levy is now called to order. Juanita, if you don't mind calling the roll.
Randy Brockway.
Here.
Lisa Gaynor.
Here.
David Kadama.
Here.
Rachel Morello.
Here.
Michael O'Brien.
Here.
Arthur Perry.
Present.
Mary Rose Mandia.
Here. All stand. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to recognize a couple individuals for public comment. The first would be Chris Roebling.
Thank you, Madam President. I had a little bit of a family mishap with a car today, so I'm going to have to leave immediately after I say this, and no disrespect by walking out as quickly as I do. With respect to the budget presentation that we saw a couple of weeks ago that was presented here to be the basis of the consideration by the board of the tax levy setting for the next fiscal year, I have to say, we started to go to U.S. House budget hearings in 1977. It was one of the least honest presentations that I have ever seen in my life. District 96 issue is very simple. Expenses are growing faster than our revenues. 80% plus or minus of D96 expenses are salary and compensation and benefits. That is the expense growth driver, but as such it was passed over by staff. Because of the new teacher's contract, the board should have a very high degree of certainty about salary, compensation, and benefit numbers for 2013-14 and for 2014-2015. So staff was wrong in that presentation to use estimates in those slots. And the board, of course, would be wrong to accept those estimates from staff in lieu of the certain figures that result from the agreement. Absent specific direction from the board, staff has no authority whatsoever to assume endless 5% per year growth in salary, compensation, and benefits. Nor should staff do so relative to the period after the existing 2-year teacher contract, absent that authority from the board. Nor should the board accept those numbers from staff unless it chooses to ignore the last 5 years of fiscal history in this community and everything, for instance, RBHS has gone through after its 8-year, 7+% raises per year contracts. It took 105 minutes, I was timing, 1 hour and 45 minutes before staff addressed, quote, cost controls at that meeting. Staff's inattention to cost controls insults the community and the pledges that several of you made campaigning against tax to the max, and the positions many other board members have carved out in their service, as well as the voters who trusted each of you on those points. Staff has no right to come between the elected representatives of the D96 community and the voters who elected them. Finally, I would suggest that the board not accept staff's recommendation on anything unless and until it receives specifics to the dollar for the causes of the 16% boost in the spending ratios that were presented towards the end of staff's presentation. To recall, those expense revenue ratios went from 81 or so in 2012-2013 to 97 in 2013-2014, the largest one-year, inter-year jump that was projected onto the screen, and staff had no specific explanation for that jump. You are our elected representatives. You do not work for staff. Staff works for you, and you work for the people of the community. You deserve a definitive explanation at the line item level of that 16% boost, and I think that you should demand it before taking action. Thank you.
Thank you. I now recognize Mary Lang Judy.
Hi, I'm Mary, and I'm Kathy Chris. I'm here on something a little bit more pleasant. We've got, I'm here representing RAIN, the Riverside Area Inclusion Network, and the first week in December we have Inclusion Awareness Week coming up in the district, and we've been working closely with administration and staff within the school district to prepare all of our schools to deliver a consistent message about inclusion, one which administration has heartily backed for us to help us in the planning and organization of. One particular event that I emailed you about earlier in the week is we have Including Samuel. It's a documentary that many of us parents in special education have seen many, many times. But you can never see it enough. It's got great information to it. We're going to be seeing this 3 times to make sure that we can fit everyone's schedules. We're going to be at 3 different libraries in Brookfield, North Riverside, and Riverside. We've partnered with those community organizations to be able to present this to as many people as we possibly could, make it as convenient as we could for everyone. And we feel like this kind of community interaction is really important in sending the inclusion message throughout the district. We really appreciate the support that we've gotten from the district, from the board on putting this together, and we look forward to continuing to collaborate with you on inclusive efforts in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. All right. Now, next we're going to hear from Zach. He's going to give us the presentation of on the tax levy at this portion of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again. At the request of the board, I was asked to provide additional scenarios regarding the tax levy and its impact on our future fund balance. So scenario 1 would be doing the maximum tax levy at 1.7% CPI, which would result in an increase of approximately $396,300. Now, the estimated impact per taxpayer, this is a very rough estimate. This is based on everybody equally paying the same amount, including the box store. So factoring in the box stores and the value of people's homes would be a lot less. But we're looking at $396,000 with 6,122 taxpayers. It would be an increase to each individual taxpayer of $64.73. And here is the 5-year projection, based on a recommendation by a board member. Instead of going with the 5% salary increase, beginning fiscal year 16, went with this 3%. Not saying that's what administration is recommending or approving, it's just to give a projected number.
Okay.
And that trend line is, some of the variables underlying that is that on basically the distribution of our staff in terms of, you know, if you have retirees, if there's more retirees than expected, then that could change things.
Yes.
And so it's not, your cohort doesn't remain constant throughout the entire time.
Correct.
It's always changing. So that's why the numbers can bounce around.
Correct. And it could be, again, people obtaining their masters, so moving
Right.
from bachelor's to masters, which would increase hiring a person that is with a lot of experience or has a master's versus somebody that may have left it.
Right. So it's just not enough to know what's in
No.
the contract.
Exactly.
Zach, I believe the fiscal year 2014 included actuals. Is that correct?
Yes.
But not fiscal year 2015. Is that correct? were those amended in any way?
No, because there's other things to consider that I knew at the beginning of the fiscal year in order to do my salary amount for the current year, which I don't know going next year. I'll know at the July 1st where it would be at, so I couldn't get an exact number. There's a lot of factors in here. There's substitution pay, there's paraprofessionals, some things like that that I don't have.
Okay. Alrighty, thank you.
I kept employee benefits at 5%. That's a very low number based on past experiences, so.
But that was what we used in the previous.
Yes, I didn't
okay.
change that. I did reduce personal services from 5% to 2.5%. Again, even though past experience, we've been climbing a lot higher than that.
What sort of expenditures have we had in purchase services?
The major portion of purchase services, special ed costs.
Okay.
You said 2%? What number did you say?
2.5%.
2.5?
And as an attempt to reduce expenses, or I remained flat on supplies for the next 5 years. Capital outlay stayed the same as the previous presentation.
And again, can you just go over what we're anticipating there
For
for capital outlay? We have.
again, in here we have our laptop purchases. Same thing going forward. Any upgrades we need to do for servers, email, so forth.
Do you think largely it's technology?
Yes.
But it could also be any improvements that we're gonna do to the buildings, like we haven't talked about roofs, parking lot.
Correct.
Mechanical systems, those are all in there too, it's not just technology.
Okay, thank you very much for addressing that. And so, okay.
And then other expenses remain flat, no increase.
Just to confirm, on the employee benefits, is the driver there, is that just the healthcare costs?
Yes.
That's the big one.
Then you see, we're surplus, slightly in a deficit, and then going forward, we're gonna be a little bit surplus, then we continue deficit.
That's that by maximizing 5 years out.
Correct. This is the max levy going out 5 years.
In fact, did you talk about the salary growth? Especially since it was brought up, during public comment.
Then I left it at 3%.
3%, yeah.
Reduced it, so I mean,
About the 3, right?
yeah, reduce it from 5% to 3%.
And we've looked at things like enrollment and the fact that we, have programs that we want to.
And that'll be explained.
That'll explain later. Yeah, we have not in this
Further
number.
presentation.
That's not factored into this number.
No.
That's something
Okay.
we're gonna have to consider.
You're going to talk about that later?
It's in the presentation.
Okay.
Oh, so the salary increases related to enrollment increases is not factored into the salary numbers?
No. They're just projections.
Right, and I only bring it up because this idea that we know to a penny what exactly our expenses are going to be is preposterous. We know what the contract states, but we don't know how many staff we're going to need to operate our programs for our students. So I think that I just feel like I want to ask about that. So.
Yeah, well, clearly, this year, we had 40 new students. We didn't hire any other staff, but we increased the class size policy. If you want to go back, that's something we talked about at the policy committee meeting. If we want to go back to lowering back our class sizes, we have to hire additional staff. That's not factored in there.
Well, the idea though isn't that we know to the penny, but there is a component of it that we do know, and then there's a contingency. I guess just trying to narrow the
Okay, I mean.
level of uncertainty, if at all possible. But we have these numbers, and we at least know what's assumed, so I'm good with that.
Okay.
And then again, as I explained before, the transfer from Ed Fund and O&M to capital projects further reduces our operating fund balance, and then our pay down of our debt certificates. So if you look at our ending fund balance, it's decreasing going forward from 20 million by fiscal year 18, we're at 14.8 million.
Couple questions. I think one of the things that's, well, I guess we'd like to understand a little better is that in 2015, we're into a deficit, right?
Right.
And, last year we were, we were only spending 81 or 82 cents on the dollar, and now we're pretty much almost to, we are projecting to spend even. And it's hard for me to understand, other than salaries, what's changed.
Well, as during the budget presentation, salaries we had. We also had Ames principal payout that we paid out in July.
Okay.
We also have the $200,000 TRS expense. We had the invoices for the Apple computers and the iPads. That was $500,000 right there. So you factor all that in, then you're going to see why in that year we're down.
All right, so a lot of those are one-time expenses. Hopefully, we won't have, the 200,000 payout. But again, in fiscal year 15, without those, I presume those kind of estimates are not in here. We're still into a deficit.
Well, like I said, it was just used as a projection, and based on, what our subs are going to be, other factors that I don't know right now, just to try to get a more realistic projection, I based the increase.
Zach, real quick, there was a number of scenarios that you presented to us at the Finance Committee meeting. Which scenario are you presenting tonight?
I'm going to present this is scenario 1, which is doing the maximum.
Okay.
But the variables are different between the two. That's somewhat confusing
Oh,
because
so
he
it
used
wasn't
to.
presented to us?
Well, it was, but he's changed some of the assumptions because
Oh.
now over here you've got 3% in salaries, and over
3%
here you
salaries.
had 5,
Correct.
right?
Okay.
So
All that's
yes,
gonna be
it's the
consistent.
same, but it's not the same.
Okay, so but does it include the pension reform figure? Proposed 6%?
No.
I pulled that out.
No.
Hold that, okay, got it.
So if we want, just going from last presentation, what we've done, we've narrowed this, just looking at revenues versus expenses on the operating side, right?
Correct.
By changing the assumptions somewhat, in fiscal year 2018, we'd have a deficit of 469,000, as opposed to 1,822,000. So again, that's the impact that it's made.
I'm sorry, I'm not.
Well, I've just got last time's presentation,
Right, and you're comparing it to which
this,
year?
with just the difference in changed assumptions, right? That's really,
And again, on the request, pulling out pension reform.
yeah, I'm looking at just the number before pension reform. So it was for fiscal year 18, 1,822,000 versus 469,000. So that's the difference in the, just the difference the assumptions make. So,
But I think that included pension reform.
no, okay, let me
Yeah, it
see.
had to, it
Yeah.
was
Well,
a
no, this
formula.
one doesn't. The very first one's no pension reform, no abatement, maximum levy.
From a finance committee meeting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think the pension is a separate line item anyway, isn't it?
It would have been right here, it would have been the line
Yeah.
item right there.
Right.
So we'd be able to take it into account. All right.
Right, and then you can see, because of our, specifically the debt certificate, we are actually deficit spending year, beginning with year 14.
Oh, okay.
And then where we are with the policy requirement of 40%, we actually start getting close after fiscal year 18. And I'll show you more in more detail further down the slide.
And,
Okay.
all right, thank you.
Okay, scenario 2, reduced levy. Actually, half of CPI. Approximate cost, $198,000, well, it's almost precise, $139. Again, the calculation is very rough estimate. Would be taxpayer impact $32.37. You can see we start deficit spending fiscal year 15. Again, because of these debt certificates, we're essentially deficit spending fiscal year 14. And you can see the decrease, again in fund balance, going from 19,891 to 13,756. And you see the percentages start to decrease. Again, after fiscal year 18, we start approaching policy requirement percentage. Again, the percentages are the same. The only thing we're changing is the reduced levy, and it's only for, the assumption is we're doing a reduced levy for fiscal year 14, max going forward.
Okay, the reduced levy of 200,000.
Correct.
Okay, so not everything, but,
Right.
okay, thank you.
Scenario 3, no increase in levy. Again, we're in deficit spending, revenues over expenditures. Again, actually, here's our number because of our debt certificate. You can see we start hitting a lower percentage in fiscal year 17. Again, zero first year, max levy going forward.
Zach, if we had not financed the $10 million of capital improvement fund, would this just be accelerated?
I can show you that in the next slide.
Oh,
Scenario 4, maximum levy, pay off debt certificate in current year, pay remaining principal, almost $9.4 million. Here's what we'd be saving, potentially saving in interest. You can see the impact is really hits their fund balance, our policy requirement. We're at 49%, decreasing steadily going forward. This is reflective of the first slide you saw. Then again, you're actually deficit spending $9 million to pay down the debt. And going forward, it's equal to what it is above revenues over expenditure.
But we'd save almost $1 million in the interest.
Yes.
But we would be really getting close to our fund balance.
Fund balance requirement.
Minimum requirement, yeah.
which is
Pretty
what,
quickly.
What is that,
And that's the
40?
reason, that's
It's
the reason
40?
that was my rationale
40.
for
All right.
financing this.
All right, but whose policy is it? That's
It's
our
our
policy
It's
that we
ours.
decided. Big deal, 40%? My God, $11 million on the ending fund balance? There's other school districts that have 15 to 20%. So change the
True.
policy.
Well, it's true, but do you want to be like
Yes.
those other districts? You want to be like those other districts?
Why not?
You'll see it more clearly in the next slide. Again, this is max levy going forward. Oh, beginning year 1 as well.
But be like those other districts. Those other districts, you know, they don't have a fund balance of 11 million. The other districts, you know, are spending the deficit. We have 11 million after that. It's a lot of
Well,
dough.
the policy is actually on the agenda on new businss tonight.
Right, right.
There's a reason for that.
Gives you a lot of flexibility too.
I kind of like that.
And we're not considering pension reform yet.
That's true.
Okay, here's a comparison of all the scenarios. The green is 60% of policy, of fund balance. Yellow is 60 to 40, and red is below 40. You can see the scenarios of max levy, reduced levy, zero increase, and then the pay off the debt certificate.
And all this is on the assumption that we're not taking any pension reform into.
That is correct.
That's correct.
that's
Well,
one,
and-
that's just one variable.
Right,
Right.
this is
that we
one,
have
I
out
mean,
there.
because you're
Right.
not thinking about continuing enrollment either. I mean, we're thinking we're not gonna have to hire any teachers, and what are we gonna do with our class size policy? I mean, if it's gonna be 20, it's gonna be more teachers, which means we have to fund the
Right.
teachers. If we don't wanna go with that, then class sizes are gonna increase. How does that affect our,
Every presentation you make, you sound like that the fact that we're making a payment of $1 million in the bond is such a bad thing. Just whenever you give a presentation,
No,
you're always like, oh, we got this million, we gotta pay it, you guys voted for.
I don't mean it that way, I just wanna
idea.
make sure you're not just looking at operating revenues and operating expenditures and think, all right, oh, we're good. You also gotta consider that we are losing $1 million every year. So when the question comes, do we not go for the max, or reasons why we need the max levy? This is not 2 years ago where we didn't have that $1 million payment.
Right.
But we had it last year.
We had it last year, right? I said 2 years ago, we didn't have it, so, and last year,
We had it and we were
Yeah.
still able to save about 18 cents on the dollar and bank it, right?
as I also received invoices July 1st rather than being paid during.
Okay, well, that's a good point. You mean for the construction?
No,
No.
yeah, we talked pretty much everything.
Okay.
That when we were in the transition period, no bills were being paid, they all got shoved into this, remember fiscal year July 1?
Okay.
It all got shoved into this year.
Worth remembering.
And he also shared that our EAV went down, so we're getting less money.
Right.
Or what went down?
Our EAV, our equal assessed
EAV,
value.
oh, yes.
Yeah, so we're getting less money, we're getting less revenue.
Right, but,
And CPI is down.
right, but you have
From 3 to
to,
1.7,
the,
and there's another,
the presentation you gave, it last at the budget, at the last finance committee meeting, shows that EAV is going on the way back up, correct?
no, I show a decrease of
Decrease.
2 point, a little over 2%.
I see.
But that shouldn't be dismissed either, the CPI dropping from 3 to
CPI drops, right.
1.7.
Yeah.
All right.
Zach, did you figure, do you have the exact figures? I know that you have read is below 40. Do we know what they're at? Exactly, the X number?
Yeah, I can get that for you.
Okay, doesn't have to
I
be done
do.
today,
Well,
but I'm
you know,
just curious.
Yeah, I only went out 5 years because I was using I was trying to be realistic. I mean, I can't really project 10 years out. So I went 5 years, and
Okay.
I do want to point out that we are still positive fund balance under max levy all the way through fiscal year '23. And you can see where we're in the negatives these 2 years. I mean, these two scenarios.
I'm sorry, Zach, could you repeat that, please?
You can see that we're still have a positive fund balance
Uh-huh.
for max levy. When
So-
we do reduce levy, fiscal year '23, we're at a deficit of 1.8 million. And then no increase, we're at deficit starting in fiscal year '22.
Now, as respects the ending fund balance,
Yes.
okay.
I did add one more a slide here regarding this, and that was because I don't know what the process or what your thought process is going forward. Again, this is max levy going forward every year. This would be, scenario 2 would be reduced levy through fiscal year 18. So next 5 years, consistently vote for reduced levy. And scenario 3, consistently vote for 0 increase for the next 5 years. And then here's what the results, the impact would be on the fund balance.
Are you saying you're
This is a
assuming,
different chart than this.
Yes, this
Okay,
is just,
sorry.
all I did was, instead of just assuming year 1 was gonna be either reduced levy or
So the
0.
one-time thing we're gonna do. that
Right,
is-
if this was gonna continue.
Or are we gonna do this going
Right,
forward every
and
year?
that's all I'm showing, is
Yeah.
just,
so scenario 3 is 0 increased levy for several years?
through fiscal year 18.
But there's two different pages, right? So the one that was in the,
Oh, I'm sorry. I did add this.
That's not in there.
That's not in
it's
here.
not in your packet, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's what
I
I,
apologize for that.
Okay.
But then, I mean, you're making an assumption that through fiscal year 18, we're gonna say no to the levy. I don't know.
It's just
Increase.
Increase.
And that's a,
It's not a shock factor or anything. Just if that's the,
Okay.
you know,
Are you shocked anyway?
I'm always shocked.
No, I think it's useful because
Right, just, I appreciate.
if we're just
pointing out
saying this is, we'll do
absolutely.
this this one time and then we'll go back to the old, maximum levy, you know.
is there, you'll be able to send us that slide?
Yes, I will.
Please, okay, thank you.
It'll be posted tomorrow to Mary Rose publicly.
okay.
We just wanted to share, we wanted to summarize for you all of the numbers that Zach put together. And I know they were put together, requested to be put together at the last finance committee. But going along with what Mr. Roebling has said, yeah, I mean, it's obvious, our revenues are not increasing at the rate of our expenditures. And we talked about that as far as our EAD, we're just getting less money. But our enrollment continues to increase. So that is going to raise up our costs. As Zach shared with you, for operational deficit spending, if we go for the maximum levy tonight, it'll start fiscal year 17, which is in 2 years. If we go for the reduced levy, it'll start next year. And if we don't increase the levy, then it's going to start this year. And then we will have to go back and amend the budget. And I think that was a question too that somebody had asked, are we going to have to go back and amend the budget if we don't pass the levy, or if we could go for a flat levy? And the answer is yes. Also, one of the things that you asked us to look at is when do our fund balances, and that was Zach's two previous charts of the red, yellow, green. So for fiscal year 20, we'll go below 40, and again, that's something people brought up that we can always adjust because it's our board policy. If we go for maximum levy, same thing for the reduced levy, it'll go below 40 in fiscal year 20, and then a year earlier if we don't do an increase. But one of the things we want to bring to you is, regardless of what levy option you choose tonight, we are going to have to begin having some serious discussions as a board and an administrative team of what cost-cutting opportunities there are, because we can't continue to spend at the rate that we talked about. And Mary Rose, you talked about it was 82 cents, now we're almost dollar for dollar. Well, we did get hit with $1 million worth of additional expenditures that this administration didn't budget for. So that really does drive up some of the costs, or some of the expenses. So we're going to have to really look at our teaching and learning programs and decide, what are our priorities? Does technology continue to be a priority for us? Look at our infrastructure. Does our infrastructure support what we want to do with 21st century learning? Looking at Common Core, the programs that we want, sending staff to professional development, looking at our new teacher evaluation system that we just talked about today. Those are all teaching and learning programs that are going to cost money. What are we going to do and how do we prioritize that? It came up 3 or 4 times in our discussion about class size. As our enrollment increases, do we want to maintain our low class size numbers? We increased it already once this year from 21 to 23 in kindergarten, from 23 to 25 in grades 3, 4, and 5. Is that going to continue? The only thing that we can really control is the supply piece, which is for instruction, but the operational stuff can't. Gas, electric, mechanical costs, those are all supplies that increase that we don't really have control over, so we have to look at that piece. And Zach mentioned the special education, our purchase services, how much those keep increasing year after year, and it was what, you said 5%?
15%. In my projection, I went as low as 2.5%, but our past experience, it's been averaging 15%.
15?
15%.
Wow, it's huge. Now, that's with special,
Correct.
driven by special ed.
Correct.
The students that we have outplaced, costs that we pay to LADSI staff here, and again, we're looking at that piece, but that has driven, that's a huge
Okay.
cost. And then also any of our outsourced service, that's any contracts that we have, for example, just like our landscaping, our mechanicals, plumbers, those are all of our outsourced services, that their contracts as well. So again, I think our recommendation, we need to start having these cost-cutting discussions soon, as a board, decide what, where, when, and how we're going to do that. But we also recommend that you maximize the levy, as we shared with you last week, at the finance committee, so we can at least prioritize and have thoughtful discussions, and have the time to think about things, and what do we want to maintain, what do we want to reduce. And then it's our time too, right now, to capture all the new growth for construction dollars with the restaurants and the Costco that are coming in, and any new construction with residential. This is
No.
the time to capture those.
Yeah, but that, to my understanding, they are not in the EAV this year. I mean, all right, they will
Yeah,
show
I
up
don't
in
think we
20,
put them in for this year.
pardon me?
No, we did not put them in the projections.
Well, and I don't think they're gonna be assessed this year. I mean, is that correct, next year? I mean, I called the assessor,
For
but,
North Riverside?
the township assessor, yeah. That manages that, yeah. She said 2014. I mean,
I
she,
didn't factor that, I didn't factor North River, any North Riverside construction. I only factored Riverside.
yeah.
And that number I received from the township.
Right, and again, she did not, this would be the assessor here at the township, who, North Riverside is in Riverside Township, did not feel that these new construction assessments would be part of our tax base in 2013, but definitely next year. Although, again, she's gonna get clarification for me, not clarification, you know, it's an important thing to take into consideration, so I would like to verify it. But, yeah, the new construction just won't be in our tax base this year.
Well, the 400,000 of it will,
Yeah,
and that's what we're trying to capture that too.
all right, okay, okay, thank you, that's a good point.
Okay, so what are our next steps? You'll decide, it's on our action sheet for tonight, that you have to approve the levy by December 16th. We have to get that into the county and then to the state. So you can discuss it tonight and take action, and then if we can't come up with an agreement, then you can discuss it tonight, and we do have an ed committee meeting on December 3rd to take action at that meeting.
All right, I have a number of other questions. I guess, first of all, I mean, many of us are interested in to not take the tax, the maximum levy. But the implication is that you lose it, over a course of 10 years, or more, well, forever.
Correct.
So it's not just giving, not taking the maximum this year, you're essentially not, you're not getting the benefit of that in future years. So let's say not taking 200,000 this year means not taking 2 million over 10 years.
2 million plus.
2 million plus. And so, I mean, that's gives you a little bit of you have to take that into consideration. The other thing is that many districts around here, Forest Park, I think has been mentioned, Oak Park, have abated. And it seems that one of the techniques they seem to be able to use is to maybe take the maximum levy and then turn around and abate the same amount. But they seem to be able to use that primarily in the debt service fund, and also, I guess, working cash where they have working bonds. First of all, can you explain to me why we never, or what's the process by which we can levy in the debt service? I don't mean necessarily having anything to do with this, but I know we did not put our construction bonds in debt service.
That had to be done through the, notice would have had to been given to the county that your intention is to levy for.
All right, and
Those debt certificates, and based on what the board agreed, I don't think they wanted to levy for debt service. It would have been an impact on the taxpayers. So they chose just to spread the payments out.
would that have been an additional amount, or would that have been able to stay within the CPI?
It's an additional amount, but it's not factored into under the tax cap. That's why they abate through debt service.
Mm-hmm.
Because that will not impact your tax base. And you can only abate through debt service. And you have to levy for debt service in order to abate debt service.
When you levy for it, is it an additional, I mean, I know it's not affected by the CPI calculation in any way?
No,
So it's totally outside of it, it's an additional amount?
yes.
Okay. So because we haven't levied for it in the past, there's no ability for us to use that?
No, I cannot go back now and say I want to levy for debt service for the debt certificates.
Okay. And then could you also maybe walk us through which funds you're proposing to levy for this year?
It would be ed fund, it would be all the funds, and I would be levying for the first time, recommending that we levy for the first time, life safety. And life safety can be used to fund the roofing repairs that we will need to do, that we have scheduled for the next 10 years.
All right, but we're actually taking levy decreases in many of the funds. I mean, over 20.
Because we are approaching the cap, I wanted to relieve some of the, for example, I instead of using the levy amount for life safety, putting it in O&M, I took it out in O&M to keep us from hitting the cap and just shifted it down to life safety, since roofing repairs is a life safety expense.
Are there any kind of requirements that you have to spend that life safety within a couple years of levying it?
Then I'm not sure, but we have our scheduled roof repairs, and it does begin this summer.
Okay.
So it would be used.
It will be used in the first year. What would the balance of that fund be then? Like, does that go under the same 40% rule that we're trying to maintain a balance there? Or?
No, it is a non-operating expenditure.
Oh.
Non-operating fund, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I had just calculated what some of the differences were by fund. But anyway, we are actually levying 107,000, although it looks like your numbers are under the Finance Committee, about 100,000 in the operating funds and 308,000 in the non-operating, almost all of which would be in life safety.
Right.
So when you show us at least the deficits on these scenarios, you're showing us operating only.
Operating only.
And when you're taking the impact of the lost revenue over the next 10 years,
Operating only.
operating only.
And that's because the state, I had to propose a balanced budget, and the focus of the balanced budget is balancing the operating expenses, operating funds.
But the loss would be greater, or can you help me understand what the,
If I included non-operating, the loss would not be greater. Life safety, I'll use life safety. Whatever revenues I get, I'll use it to offset the roof repairs. If I need additional money, it would come from O&M.
well, what would be the impact, let's say, if we approve the operating levy, but not the non-operating? What would be the impact on the
The only non-operating we have that I'm levying for would be life safety.
Okay.
I would just take that amount, put it up in O&M to pay for the roofing repairs.
Okay. But it still has the same effect of losing revenue forever, right?
I don't understand.
Well, the cumulative impact of not,
Not levying
I
for
mean-
life safety, no.
Because it's not subject to the cap.
You're still going to short yourself the $300,000.
Oh, if I remove it completely?
Yeah.
Yes,
for this year or for
For-
10 years evermore?
Yeah.
going forward, for this year and going forward, yes.
Compounded.
Okay, so it will compound.
Yes. I'm sorry, I was just assuming I would just make the request in O&M.
Right, no, sure.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I knew you'd pay for it somehow, but it would still, unlike debt service,
Correct.
it would have a long-term impact. It's actually, we're not in the business
We're
meeting yet.
meeting.
No, we're in the,
Hearing.
Thank you.
All right,
I guess just one quick question. There are no alternatives that you can, or no scenarios that you can see for us to not take the maximum without losing the cumulative revenue over a 10-year period, or forever, actually.
We just do debt service and we don't levy for debt service.
Right, that's the only alter, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, with that, I would like a motion for adjournment of this public hearing. Was there any question?
second.
The public hearing regarding the 2013 tax levy is adjourned. And I'm going to ask Juanita to call to order our regular business meeting.
Lisa Gaynor. Here. David Kadama.
Here.
Randy Brockway.
Here.
Michael O'Brien.
Here.
Rachel Morella. Here. Mary Rose Mangia.
Here.
And Arthur Perry.
Present.
Thank you. Meeting's open. Baba, can you update us with the status of FOIA requests in the last month?
Sure. We received a FOIA request from a graduate student at Cornell University doing research on collective bargaining. So she had asked for our previous collective bargaining contracts, so we have sent them to her. We didn't include all the contracts in your packet, but if you'd like to see them, we can provide them to you just because there's up their length. And that was the only FOIA that we received.
Thank you. I'd like to make a couple of quick announcements. One is just to acknowledge the press release from the board, to announce the Board of Education's Member Appreciation Day, which was November 15th. Thank you very much for all of those who sent well wishes to the board, and appreciate the opportunity to serve. Thank you. And also with my fellow board members. Appreciate their contribution as well. Also, I'd like to make an announcement that we have just won once again the 2013 to 2015 Apple Distinguished Recognition Program. This is, okay, thank you.
Is it 2 years distinction?
That's what it says here, 2013, a 2-year designation.
That's what $400,000 gets you.
There's your levy.
You'll receive an Apple Distinguished Program plaque and a banner. So we have the banner. All right. And where will you be displaying the banner?
Go get it right now.
Brian's
All right.
office.
All right.
Brian's office.
All right. Well, thank you for displaying it for all of us, Brian. Appreciate it. All right, next. Next, I would, if there aren't any suggestions for corrections in or amendments to minutes of previous meetings, I would like a motion to approve the meeting minutes as presented and as listed in the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone approve? Disapprove?
Thank you. It has been.
Just a question, the policy committee minutes, is that gonna be posted, that'll be posted for the next one?
Alrighty, we've just approved the minutes as shown, as listed in the agenda. And we also do not have any presentations from the floor.
We had a really good one.
What?
I said we just had a really good
You
one.
want? Yeah.
There you
Do you want me
go.
to do it again?
It may sink, you know what? It may sink in yet, Zach. So, yeah. Anyway, thank you. Bhavna, are you, thank you. We'll be presenting the guiding principles?
Sure. In your packet, I just provided you with an overview of our guiding principles, as I do each month. Academic and professional excellence. Just want to give you a brief overview, since I provided the detail in your packet. The curriculum committees, all curriculum committees have met. We're going to give a detailed overview at the Education Committee meeting on December 3rd, but we have over 70 staff members who participate on 4 committees, and the quality of their work, you'll be able to get a report at the Ed Committee. Multi-District Institute Day was October 25th, where District 94, 95, 96, and 208 were brought together to do some articulation regarding Common Core standards, and then grades 6 through 12 did some specific subject area articulation. And we're going to have our next Institute Day on Tuesday, November 26th. And again, we'll give an overview of that at the Ed Committee in detail of what we talked about and what were the outcomes of both of those professional development days. Special Services Department, Mrs. King and Ms. Folland have hit the ground running and met with various stakeholder groups, parents, as well as the RAIN Committee, staff, and administrators to kind of identify what are some areas of need and priority to address. So we'll be, again, presenting that to you at the Ed Committee, a detailed overview of their action plan. And the new Illinois State Report Card was published on October 31st, and that link was sent home to parents on November 1st so they could see the new report. And then Dr. Gannon and I went around to all the PTA and PTO meetings sharing the new format and what parents can look for. Financial and operational excellence, as you just heard at the Finance Committee, and then a recap of some new information. Zach presented the levy, and tonight you'll be voting on which levy option to take. We continue to work with the engineers on the ADA compliance issues, so we're hoping in the next couple of weeks that we'll have that finalized and that project completed. Mr. Radke's working with the architect and Araceli on the Ames server room and looking at the condensation issue that that client first brought to our attention in the report. You'll be looking at the stipend report that you asked us to review. That'll be in action items later today. And then as well as construction costs, we're looking at bid versus non-bid totals for the construction, and Zach will provide those for you in April. We were waiting for the November 30th closeout. Rigorous communications. All 5 of our schools, I'm very proud to say, are up and running with Facebook and Twitter. This Friday, the next 96-second update will be going home for the first trimester with an overview of what we've done in all 3 of our guiding principles. The parents and staff continue to receive board updates after each regular meeting. And then, as I shared earlier, Brian and I met with all the PTA and PTOs during the month of October to review the ISAT and the new state report cards. And that is all I have.
I have a question.
Yes.
Related to the Ames server room, when can we expect to receive a report on the scope of the problem and the repairs and the timetable?
Hopefully within the next month, at the next December. I'll put it in my weekly report, but if there's something major, then we'll do it next month. Yeah, but I'll keep you updated.
Did we tap Concept 3 for that as the architect, or?
Concept 3, and I believe Araceli, right?
Oh, Araceli.
The plumber.
The plumber, or the.
Yeah, heating and air.
Air guy, right.
HVAC, right?
And Araceli.
And the plumber, whoever the plumber is, we looked at.
Aceteli. I'm like, wait, it's not
Yeah,
Araceli.
I'm sorry.
Aceteli.
It's Aceteli.
And why are they involved? Were they the plumber? Were they the contractor at Ames?
Yes.
And are we looking for remedy of the problem, perhaps on them? Does there appear to be something that was not done properly?
We're not sure. I mean, that client first shared the report of, the condensation and how it was being kind of covered up with the plastic. So we're having them look at it to see what, if anything, could be a long-term solution.
Okay.
But I just think to Randy's questioning is, so we have Concept 3 involved, Bill Radke and Aceteli involved in the assessment. So I'm confident Bill would be looking out in our interest, but is concept 3 also looking out in our interest to see if there is actual support for putting the liability of the cost onto the remedy of the cost onto Osatelli? Or
I think that's what we'll follow up with Mr. Radke about, yes. That is our hope.
Yeah, I'd like to think that we're just trying to hold or trying to go back to the people who did the original work and hold them accountable for it and
Right.
see what's going on before
Right.
we do anything else.
We just need to make sure we're assessing all the issues, it's not just, is it just condensation?
Yes.
Or is it a plumbing issue? Or we need to first address what the issues are, and then we can, if it's something that installation was done properly, then we can go from there. But we first need to find out what exactly, is it more than the condensation?
right.
So that's what-
And so if it becomes a sizable issue, it may be something that we need a second opinion on. That may be something to consider, to bring someone else in, an objective third party to come in there and say, this is what I see now.
Correct.
Is there any
Aren't there
possi-
2 other server rooms that have leakage as well? Why are we concentrating just on the one?
I think that was the only one that he took pictures with. That was at the Ames with the cover.
Is it more
That's
than
what I
one?
recall.
He,
Just one.
the presentation had at
Here,
least 2.
I got the presentation.
I think they were wired. The wiring was incorrect on them, but not the condensation issue.
Oh, the one had to do with the window well.
Central.
Here at Central. And that was a water issue.
I don't remember if that was an actual water issue or a potential water issue.
I saw one for Hauser with wiring, bags over it, and then one at Ames too with bags over it.
So we got bags over computers at 2 schools
Servers and wires,
and the window well issue, right? So that'd be the third.
Yeah, I got pictures of
Right.
plastic at Hauser.
So we can look at that too.
I would just say that we address all 3.
I
I
even
think that
checked
would
the other,
seem reasonable to, might as well just check them all, right?
Yeah.
all 5.
Was it a different,
Well,
I think there might have been a different plumber or HVAC.
At Hauser?
At Hauser, but I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure it was, Asatelli did Ames, but
But
I'm
wasn't
not.
it 2 years ago? Right, both of them?
I thought
So
Asatelli
different
was,
plumbers did
Oh,
the
same.
capital
Asatelli,
projects
I
at the same
think,
year?
Say that again?
Different plumbers did the same project in the same year? Because Ames and Hauser had the renovation done at the same year,
Yeah, but I
right?
Yeah,
think
but they
there was
didn't
a
all have
different
the
group
same.
at Ames
Okay,
than
got
there
it.
was
There
at
were 2
Central and
big
Hauser, but Asatelli was similar between one summer to the next summer. Does that make sense?
yeah.
Okay.
So Asatelli didn't do all the work in
I
2012.
do not believe that they did, but I could be incorrect. We just need to verify that. I'm pretty sure.
But yes, Randy, to answer your question, we'll follow up with all 3 of them.
All 3, yes. And if we could have a report at the next meeting. Okay.
All right. Anyway, next is reports from school board committees. First Education Committee.
We have not met since the last regular board meeting, so nothing to report, but we will have a meeting on December 3rd, 7 o'clock, right here in this same bat time, same bat channel. And as you heard, actually from the superintendent's report, there's quite a good amount of awesome information that we'll be talking about, so.
All right, thank you. A Finance Committee, is there any more than,
Well, I could give a little 3 bullet points of what happened.
okay.
We had the last finance committee was on 11/5, and at that meeting, the annual audit was presented by Evans, Marshall, and Peace. And it was later accepted that evening at a special meeting. Zach presented his first levy presentation, and then we asked for additional scenarios, which were just presented earlier this evening. We had a discussion on technology infrastructure, on a architect of record going out with an RFP. We talked briefly about policy 460, which was spending limits for the superintendent, which will also come up later in this evening's agenda. And we tabled manager's reports till the January Finance Committee meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Working committee procedures.
Skipping me.
I'm sorry, policy committee. Sorry.
I know we just met, so, yeah. The policy committee
For
met.
so soon forgotten.
So soon forgotten. Policy committee met earlier this evening. Had a pretty productive meeting, almost got through the entire agenda, we're so close. But we we had a second reading on on 4 policies from the ISB's Press Update 81 that will be put on the agenda for the regular business meeting in December 17th for final action, for final adoption. Similarly, with 2 other policy updates that were drafted by our board attorney related to board member communications and committees. So those have had a second reading, and they will be on the December 17th regular business meeting for final action and adoption. A number of policy updates from Press Update 81 from the ISB were accepted for first reading. And that actually, we're able to get through that, and so that actually completes our at least our first reading of all the policies in that Press Update 81 that was released in March, this past March. So we started moving on to Press Issue 82, which we just looked at a number of policies that are just recommended for to be reviewed in a 5-year cycle. A number of policies were taken as policies that we do want to delve into, deliberate further on, and they have been scheduled. One on Policy 280 on board member conduct will be scheduled for discussion on February 2014. A number of policies on educational philosophy and objectives, library media program, organization of instructions were deferred to the Education Committee for their April 2014 meeting. Other policies there, we were running out of time, so we tabled them for December meeting. We weren't able to get to the food allergy policy that was on the agenda. That will be discussed at the 2014 meeting. Received a report from the Working Committee on hiring process, and that is the highlights of our meeting.
Thank you, David. Working committee procedures.
I gave an update in the policy committee that we have met with Mr. O'Brien, and we have brainstormed a couple of ideas. I have not reduced them to writing yet, and I have to talk to our other committee members and see what ideas they have. So we're just getting started.
All right, you're gonna focus on hiring, that's the first?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Next, reports from board liaisons, the IASB.
Actually, the one report I'll give you is on, I attended a finance legislation meeting of our EdRed, the Education Research and Development organization that we're a member of. They talked about pension reform, of course, that's the big hot topic. Nothing uplifting there at all. But they did talk about teacher evaluations and early retirement option. There was a bill. There was that the ability to have early retirements is running out. I think it's September 2016, if I have that date right in my head. And they suggested that boards
should really look at that, see how that fits in with your contracts, the CBA contracts. And-
What kind of contracts?
So your collective bargaining
Oh,
agreement
okay.
contracts, and see how that timeline fits in with the ability to have early retirements, and how that works between the union and the district in terms of managing staff and so forth, and the financial impact of that. So they suggested that we looked, and they brought up Stan Eisenhammer as a resource. So good to have him on as our board attorney.
Alrighty.
So that's my report.
PLT.
PLT, the last PLT was October 16th, the day after.
Excuse me a second. When we use these abbreviations, I think it would be helpful to me and to the audience if we would say what the PLT means, and as IASB.
Well, hopefully you know what the
Perhaps I do, but
the Illinois Association of School Boards.
yeah,
Point well taken.
yeah.
PLT is the parent leadership team. It consists of all the PTA, PTO presidents, a board member, and the superintendent.
Thank you.
We meet every Wednesday following the board meeting. Last month, some of the topics that were discussed were the implementation of an electronic directory and the calendar process that the district goes through each year, and how maybe we can make that a little more streamlined in the future. There was some discussion about e-backpack versus just regular old backpack mail, and is it sometimes more efficient to send something home in the backpack versus electronically. And there was also discussion about how parents will be selected to be on district committees, and a pretty good discussion about potentially putting a process in place for parents to submit an application of some sort. And I think that will be further flushed out. So tomorrow is the next parent leadership team meeting, and I will be there.
Thank you.
On the e-backpackers, I would like to see if there's some way that we don't have to click so many times to get the actual documents. I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but.
Oh, and I could just follow up. I just happen to have, just so Bob and Zach, last year Aceteli did Central and Hauser, and Ideal Heating did Ames.
I didn't get the name of it.
Ideal Heating.
Ideal Heating.
So we just
Thank
make a
you.
note of that.
Thank you. That
Have those notes handy.
wouldn't do to call Aceteli to help us with names, huh? And I do not believe the Discipline Code Committee has
No,
met.
they have not.
Alrighty. Next, do we have any report from the Riverside Education Council?
My name is Patricia Gill. I'm the president of the Riverside Education Council. We are the union for all certified and non-certified staff. I would like to make a statement in regards to two upcoming agenda items, stipend positions and the tax levy. In District 96, we offer a well-rounded, high-quality educational program. We offer a challenging academic curriculum in addition to a wealth of extracurricular activities. At Hauser, we are proud of our athletic teams and fine arts programs. And at all schools, we are also proud that we can provide a safe environment outside our buildings before and after school. I am aware that the stipend schedule has been discussed. I would like to stress that these stipends are for extra duties that teachers and paraprofessionals perform beyond their normal occupational duties. These stipends were negotiated and included in our contract to recognize that staff are accepting extra responsibility to provide safety and enrichment to District 96 students. The REC has a stipend committee in place and has met with administration and board members 3 years ago. We recognize continued dialogue needs to occur on this topic. However, since these discussions require time and staff members have been performing their stipend duties since August, The REC is asking that the stipend assignment schedule please be approved tonight. The REC also is in support of the proposed tax levy amount. We want this district to continue to be a place where students receive a high-quality, well-rounded education. This district has all the pieces of the puzzle in place. The leaders, the staff, the students, the parents, the buildings, the programs. But right now, most importantly, it is you who can make all these parts come together. Please vote yes on the proposed maximum tax levy. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. All right, next, we would like to go into the financial portion of our agenda. Are there any questions on any of the financial statements or the treasurer's reports? There, Zach, would you, are there any questions? Zach, do you have any kind of a presentation for any portion of this agenda or this section of the agenda?
No, I only have items to discuss that are current and anticipated expenditures.
And that's in your extras section?
Right, Zach, if you'd like to discuss them, thank you.
Current expenditures that you would have noticed on the payable list are Bright Spark trip, Springfield trip. We collected the funds for it, and the district issued the check. Client First Consulting Group, the fee for the tech audit assessment was $5,350. You'll see two charges from Delta Education. That is for FOSS Science curriculum materials that were approved last year and implemented this year.
So is that the full cost then? So it's not about 95,000?
That's correct.
So versus the 100,000+ that we were initially looking at.
Right.
Okay.
Yes. Me and Brian have negotiated that down.
So you negotiated it all the way down to 37,000?
No,
No,
there's two.
There's two.
37 and 58.
I was gonna say,
You get a pretty good program.
yeah,
You got that all for 37.
you could negotiate something for me.
The next item is the Riverside Golf Club appraisal. That is our portion of the cost for contesting, well, for having our attorneys try to resolve the appeal from Riverside Golf Club.
That's our portion out of a whole.
Correct.
This is RB.
Yes.
All those groups that are
Yes.
in that.
In the cooperative, is that what we call,
Yeah.
is that what we call a cooperative?
Action Learning Systems, that's you're going to see a charge for $9,495. That's for professional development of Common Core standards. And then Evans, Marshall, and Peace, the audit fees for fiscal year 2013. NCS Pearsoning, that's our Power School training / license fee. And then First American Bank, that is the payment for the ERO TRS cost that we incurred.
On Bright Spark Travel, that's the possibly the private entity organizing that? So going back to our policy committee discussion?
Correct.
See, but I don't think it's a private entity that's planning.
That organize it, we organize it.
Through a private entity.
It's a different,
We hire
We
them to
contract
do
with
this.
them.
Right.
correct.
So,
But it's our staff, it's our instructions, our curriculum program that is coordinating this.
right.
That's what's
So
driving
in that
this.
regard, if anything should happen, that's our liability,
That's
that's on us.
Correct.
right?
Yeah,
Right, when is this trip typically?
it's already done.
It's already done, so we do it in the fall? And it's for the,
Seventh graders.
7th grade.
okay.
Okay, anticipated expenditures. We talked about the 3-year asbestos reinspection. We had it completed. We're waiting to be invoiced, and the approximate cost was still $5,000. 88,
Who executed it? Just out of curiosity.
Concept 3.
They did it?
Yes.
Like Rich?
Rich came out,
Whatever,
yes.
yeah, okay.
He's qualified to an asbestos?
Yeah.
Yes.
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 Yeah, that's their Their
Rich
specialist,
Cumnick?
yeah.
Something like that.
The next item is ADA compliance for handicap parking at the rear of Hauser, required to be completed before December 2013. We actually went out and obtained 3 quotes, and the approximate cost was $7,000 if no footing issues, which meant we can grind up to, I believe, 4 inches. If there was a footing issue, we would have to dig up deep 16 inches, I'm sorry. And that would double the cost to $15,000.
And so what makes us go one way or the other? You gotta start doing it?
Yes, we're gonna go, we have the lowest bidder. We're gonna call them, they're gonna grind, and if we'll inspect the footing. If footing's not an issue, it should just be $7,000, at most $7,000.
So when are we anticipating the start of that work?
Well, I wanted to make sure you were aware.
Okay.
And we can proceed, contact the company this week and have them start as soon as possible.
But they're already giving you some at least verbal commitment that they can complete it by December 2013, by the end of the month?
Yeah, there wouldn't be an issue. The only thing that would be an issue would be the weather during work hours if it's below 50. Yeah.
And is there inspections? Do they have to do inspections with the village or no? We're back to West 40, so no, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so if we don't get it completed by December, end of the month, do we start incurring some kind of sanctions?
I just have to let
or-
the Attorney General know the reasons for not completing it.
Hopefully weather
Yes.
will be acceptable, if that should happen.
The next item, you'll see the next treasurer's report will be the transfer, the board-approved transfer of $2 million from O&M to capital projects. That already happened, it just didn't happen before the treasurer's report was completed. The next item is to repair broken tile from storm sewer at Blythe. It was just a rotting pipe. It's going to cost $3,500 to repair that. We also noticed there was an additional broken tile from storm sewer, which may have resulted from the summer construction contractor. We'll need to investigate further. We have a company that will investigate the cause of the breakage and will deem if it's just normal aging of the pipe or something that was incurred because of the construction.
And this together should solve the situation with the base Blythe, but,
Correct.
sorry.
The water, yes.
The Blythe basement problem, right?
Yes.
Oh, great.
Could you recap why basement problem?
The last 2 rains, we've took in significant water in the Blythe basement through what we believe is the sewer. And I just happened to be there the day that the water was there.
So the most recent, as in just a couple of days ago?
I don't know about a couple
We didn't have
days
any
ago.
a couple days ago. That
The
was-
2 times before that, when we had those significant downpours, and they were both in the evening or at night, so it wasn't like there was a body that could watch to see where the water was pouring in, but there was significant amount. So I just want to make sure that this
What part of
addressed
the basement?
the new,
Finished part?
The boiler
what's
room.
resource, what?
The multipurpose.
Thank you, the multipurpose.
By the servers.
Servers are upstairs.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
I did notice today that in the one corner of the building, as you approach not the main front door, but the other front door, that there's been quite a settling of the soil.
Yeah, that's been noted
Is that
before.
Is that different than this, or is it?
That's different than this, because this is on the other side, it's in the parking lot.
Okay. So I would think that we would want Ramesh to weigh in on this.
He
Well-
might have taken pictures the very first time, right?
That I'm not sure of.
I don't know, he has maybe weighed in already, I'm not 100% sure, but he was still within contract the first rainfall, I
I
believe.
think that Bill did contact Ramesh.
So, I
He
mean,
recommended a company to
To
investigate
do
the
what
cause.
you're doing.
Yes.
I see. So they're going to do some sort of a surveillance of the pipe?
Right. Could be a camera going through the pipe and then locating where the collapse actually occurred.
How much is the investigation of the pipe?
Initial cost was $350.
Oh,
No,
okay.
3,000.
For the,
It's worth it.
for the, camera.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Yeah.
Before we proceed with the repairs, I'd like to get a report on that.
Okay.
To find out who's responsible.
Next item, we have tuck pointing issues at Central that, if it rains and the rain hits in a certain direction, water gets through into the building. So, we had an estimate of $3,000 to repair that issue. The next item, I believe we talked about this during our construction meetings. I don't think it was, I know it wasn't included, was not included in our agreements, was the laminate display cases and countertops at Blight. There's 9 cases and 2 countertops, approximate cost of $5,500. And then we have a leak issue at Hauser Gymnasium. It's up to be replaced. It was last done in 1989. Initial cost of $15,000 to $20,000. If it's just a, I guess a simple seal the entire roof. If it's a complete tear out, it's going to cost about $60,000.
Is your plan to come to the finance committee with that in January?
Yes.
Because we'd have to go out to bid, right, for that?
If it's $60,000,
Right.
yes.
Zach, back to the tuck pointing at Central. Was that some of the recent construction? Was
From
it real-
Central?
You mentioned tuck pointing,
Yes.
leaking. Was that associated with some of the recent construction?
I could not answer that. I don't know.
Did we do any
We didn't do
exterior
anything with the
work?
exterior.
Right.
We didn't do any exterior
I don't
work.
know if you're saying if it's caused from the construction on
No.
the interior. I don't know.
Tuck pointing, the brick.
It's a 120-year-old building.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to
It
see
could
if it
happen.
was, connected with any recent construction.
That'd be surprising.
Yeah. I mean, Central was before my term here.
Thank you.
I really
Thank you.
appreciate this
Thank
report. Thank you.
I have a question. I get emails, or I'm around at lunch at various lunch places in Riverside, Alliance Township, North Riverside. I get emails from teachers. Can you clarify this point? Do the building principals have a school budget or not?
Yes, they do.
Okay. And then I see that teachers come through and say that when they buy materials and hang on to receipts and submit those, they've been told that they cannot and will not be reimbursed. Can you comment on that?
I have not said that.
Okay. And who has said that?
I cannot speak for, I don't know.
Okay.
I can't answer that question.
Okay. But to your knowledge, if a teacher does submit, they should be reimbursed if it's for legitimate supplies?
I would hope they would get approval first.
Okay.
Say, okay, I'm looking to make this purchase. Is it approved or not? Rather than make the purchase and then come say, well, here, I made this
Okay.
purchase.
All right.
Are there any procedures in place for that?
I don't know if there is not. I think if anything, there's miscommunication.
It's been known to happen.
Agreed.
All right, thank you, Zach.
Yeah, thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the stipend positions as of 10/30/13, or October 30th, 2014.
We didn't vote on the vote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I have a list.
All right, thank you, sorry. May I have a motion to approve the payable list as presented?
So moved?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Randy Brockway,
Yes.
Lisa Gaynor,
Aye.
David Kadama,
Aye.
Rachel Morella, Michael O'Brien,
Aye.
Arthur Perry,
Aye.
Mary Rose Mangia.
Aye. And we've approved the payable list as presented in the agenda. That's my new strategy to shorten our meetings. We just won't
Skip
vote.
things.
Just won't vote and skip
Be
things.
some drawbacks to that approach.
So we may get it stacked up as our policy reviews, but anyway. Now, I believe we might be ready for the stipend supervision review. And Bob, were you going to provide some additional information on the report? I think it's
can,
color. I think it's
sure.
color coded.
Okay.
So if you can explain that to us.
You'd asked us to go back and meet with principals and have them look at their timesheets. So we color-coded all of the, you asked us what was done during school hours and what was outside of school hours. So the red is all the before and after school supervision that is done during the contract day. And I believe the yellow is also done during the contract day. Yes. Yellow and red. Partial contract day, so they could start it maybe at 8, but they're doing it until 8:30. But really the contract day starts at 8:05. So that's where the yellow comes in at. So you'll see, I think there's 3 or 4 of them.
When you say contract day, that's the hours determined by in the CBA?
Correct.
Okay.
And is the contract day the same for all the teachers?
No, and I can pull that up for you. For Ames, Blythe, and Central, the contract day for full-time staff is 8:05 to 3:15. For Hollywood, it's 8 to 3:10. And for Hauser, it's 8:15 to 3:25.
The last one was Hauser,
Correct.
8:15 to 3:25?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
is the entire time, what I didn't understand about this chart, is the entire time for these individuals fall within the service day?
The red.
The red, so it's total 100%, yellow, it's partial?
Correct.
Okay.
And for Ames and Blythe and Central, what was the contract day again? 8:05?
8:05 to 3:15.
3:15.
All right, so, I'm sorry, my board book ran out on me. Red means that, I guess, well, I don't know how to put it. Red means those are already under the collective bargaining agreement, that those are, we already pay for it based on the hours.
All of the stipends are approved in the collective bargaining agreement. You
Right.
asked us to go back and see what was done during the contract day and what was done outside the contract day.
Okay.
So everything in red is done during the contract day. Everything is in yellow is partial contract day.
Right, okay. And so, looking at this, then I'm clear, we really can't do anything about this right now based on the collective bargaining agreement that we have with REC.
That's correct.
Okay.
Bob, now you've given us what the red amounts to in dollar amounts and also the yellow. Do we know what the grand total is on this whole report?
We do, don't we, Zach?
She knew somebody was going to ask, huh?
Right. I mean, I don't.
The grand total including all
All
stipends?
stipends.
It's about
Well, why, it's red.
150-some thousand, right? 150.
Yeah, I mean, let's
Excuse
be
me?
open about the amount that we're talking about.
150.
150.
150,000.
I think that's what I recall from when we had it all totaled up.
Yeah.
So
Any of
wait,
that spreadsheet.
as I understand it, the issue is the assignment is covered by the collective bargaining agreement, but there's conflict because it says the hours, the date of hours are from 8 to 3 or whatever the specific school is. Do I understand that correctly? It's not clear what happens in those situations?
And no, it's staff are doing, like, for example, before school supervision.
Right.
The day starts at
8:05.
8:05. So before school supervision may start at 8:10 or 8:15. So they're on the contract and they're also doing a before school supervision and getting paid a stipend for doing the before school supervision. during their contract time. And that's what you would ask us to clarify.
That's what the contract provides.
Right.
The
Correct.
contract
Yes.
provides, these are the
Yeah.
hours that
Okay,
everybody
so
works,
right.
but they also have approved and identified these stipends and at these rates.
Right.
So that just basically has to be firmed up next.
Yes.
Negotiation, got it, I understand, all right.
And I think there's still continued discussions to be had with the RSC, and that is something that Patty raised in her statement.
Right.
Is that we want to continue these discussions. This has been a long-standing discussion. Not only has the board had questions, but also amongst the RSC membership. There's some questions, and we would like to, in my past involvement with those negotiations with the stipend committee, that is a standing committee, we're trying to extend a commitment that we will both continue to work down the path of clarifying these issues, and that hopefully, it would be a nice goal to have that by time that we come up to the end of this current contract that ends in 2015, that at least this we will flush out all these stipend issues. So at least this one piece will go into the next negotiations.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out, because this one seems to conflict with another provision, we have a conflict here, and I'm trying to figure that out. So I think that's something we just have to work on, the specific issue we have to clarify next time. Yes, stipends overall, we can talk about during negotiations. I'm just trying to understand what the issue is at hand.
Yeah, I agree with David's point. We're not, and I heard the REC state, we're not here to get rid of track stipends or anything. We see a lot of duplicity between the contract and some of the stipends. At least how I see it is what we pay in the contract and what we pay in stipends seems to be a bit of an overlap, and I think it's a cost-cutting measure that we need to address.
Could I ask, are there any board members that were in the last collective bargaining, on the last collective bargaining team that are sitting at the table?
Yes.
Okay. And has this...
This was not subject to bargaining at the last
We
negotiation.
pulled it out, and I represented the board on the initial discussions on stipends, which is separate.
You lost me. Now, you say this was not.
This was not part of the negotiations in the most recent
Because it was an extension. It was an extension.
It was just extensive.
Right,
It was an extension,
Right.
and the scope of the things that we agreed to bargain were limited. They weren't, it wasn't a complete renegotiation of the contract, it wasn't a completely new contract.
Okay, so it was not discussed, so it was, you might say that it was overlooked. or-
No.
No, that was the decision made that we were going to, work on these specific topics for negotiating the extension. And there was a rationale at the time as to why we did that. It was a mutual agreement between the board, at least the team of the board that was working on it, and the REC leadership.
Very
And
good.
at a minimum, we need to clean up the language so it's clear, without having to go to arbitration.
Yeah, I can honestly say that I wasn't aware of this kind of overlap on this particular issue
Yeah,
in the
no, until it
contract. It
becomes-
just was, it never came
Right.
up, so.
Now we know.
Definitely something that now we're aware of it, we should work towards a mutual, common, way forward that doesn't have that overlap or confusion.
I would agree with Michael. I think there's duplicity here, and that we heard at the beginning of the meeting when we talked about the maximum tax levy that we need to begin cost cutting, and I think this is certainly low-hanging fruit as far as I see it.
I think you may, any other discussion on this topic?
No, we're not voting on anything on this.
Yeah, we are.
Well, we have
You have to approve it.
Yeah, that's right. All right, very good. All right, you're right.
that's
You're
what-
trying to,
No, you're right.
you're trying to hurry the meeting along too.
Well, that's
Thank
just
you.
said, I'd like to make the motion that we approve the stipend as presented, and if we can get a second, then we can have some further discussion, if you want to have further discussion. on
I'll
this.
second it.
So, first and second.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? All right, thank you. And Juanita, will you take the roll?
Mary Rose Mangio. Arthur Perry.
Aye.
Michael O'Brien.
Wait, you skipped Mary Rose?
Yeah, I didn't say anything, but yes, I approve the report.
Wait, try to hurry up too.
It was definite.
No,
There's only you got a split second. Come on, you got
So,
to answer.
so
I
Mary Rose,
thought you'd come back around.
Mary Rose, could you sum up, what are we voting on? right
You
now?
are voting on, to approve the report as presented in the package, to approve the stipend positions for the 2013-2014 school year for payment according to the schedule and contract. And this report essentially, tells you what the cost is.
And this is, we do this once a year.
It's an annual required.
Okay.
Want to
I'll
start again?
over. I'm gonna start over. Mary Rose Mangia,
Aye.
Arthur Perry.
Aye.
Michael O'Brien.
Aye.
Rachel Morella.
Aye.
David Kadama.
Aye.
Lisa Gaynor.
Aye.
And Randy Brockway.
No.
Thank you. The stipend positions for 2013-2014 school year have been approved. Now we move to the approval of a resolution to adopt a certificate of 2013 tax levy for the 2013 year. Is there any discussion? Any further
You want a
discussion?
motion? You
Yeah.
want a
The
motion?
motion, and this would be for a motion for the maximum levy.
So moved.
Second. Discussion.
Any
Who-
further
who-
discussion?
Who made the motion?
David?
Aye.
Art?
In a second.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you made the motion?
Yes.
And you seconded?
Yeah.
Okay.
So discussion.
All right, so if there's no further discussion, call the,
Rachel Morella.
No.
Lisa Gaynor.
aye.
David Kadama.
Aye.
Michael O'Brien.
No.
Arthur Perry.
Aye.
Mary Rose Mangia.
No.
And Randy Brockway.
No.
May I have a sec? Oh, and the maximum levy has not been approved. May I have a further motion to approve the second scenario, or the scenario with 200,000, something less than the maximum?
Sure, I'll second it.
No, yeah. A motion.
First motion.
No, I'll make them, well, I don't want to say. I make a motion that we vote to approve the second scenario of, what was our percentage?
The reduced levy.
Reduced levy
Reduced
amount.
levy of total.
Wait, that's not specific enough.
Can we just, figure that out?
Someone look it up.
So it'll be less than CPI.
So we gotta
0.87.
come up with something.
Oh,
This,
85%
right
of
here.
CPI. So we
What
wouldn't
is it?
capture any new construction tax revenue on any new construction.
What?
0.85.
0.85?
0.85.
To 1/2 of the CPI. All right, do you want to make that motion?
I make a motion that we approve the .85 CPI tax levy. That gonna fly or what?
Thank you.
All right.
So again, that means that we wouldn't get any tax revenue on any new construction, correct?
No.
Okay.
Need a
Second.
All right, very good.
Can I, Zach, just before you call the roll, can you explain to me why we wouldn't get any tax revenue on new construction?
Because we're not at CPI.
Okay.
So it's additional money, it's not just the 400,000, it's, $400,000, $200,000 shortfall, it's even potentially more than that
Okay.
impact.
All right. All right. Now, Juanita?
So
So
yeah,
we in
motion-
discussion? I made the
And we need a
motion,
second.
it was seconded by Rachel. Are we gonna discuss, or are we just gonna
Is
vote?
there any further discussion? I think we've asked our questions
Yeah,
on
I
that.
think so too.
I would just say that I've been on the board about 6 months now, and I've heard a lot about spending, and a lot of the spending has been in excess from what I had ever believed to been true. Whether it's, I'll mention transportation, our transportation budget, our special education budget, the computers. It appears from a recent report that our construction spending perhaps was not monitored or administered as well as it could have been. We've had salary increases, and we've had a very extravagant administrative budget before this current administration. So I think we need to get into the cost-cutting phase and get into the cost-cutting phase seriously. At this point next year, I would feel much better about approving a tax levy increase. But at this point, I would say no.
So, explain to me again, why not this year but next year? What
Well,
makes this year?
Yeah.
Is this the punishment for some of the excesses from the past?
No punishment. I'm just saying that we haven't tried. We haven't tried to cut, and it hasn't been.
Okay, but if those cost cutting do not bear fruit as much to make up for the shortfall that we are going to be putting upon ourselves for the next umpteen years, what then? Tax referendum?
Well,
that's something, I won't be on this board to vote for
well,
a
let's
tax
not go gloom
referendum.
and doom yet. I think though.
We see the numbers.
No,
We see
I
the
see the
numbers
numbers.
of what you're
I do.
doing for a $200,000 decrease below
I agree
what we're
with
looking for
Randy.
right now.
We need to look hard at cost cutting. I have
True,
to say
true.
that I've
But
seen.
be ready.
11.
At the village, there was a regime that came in who said we're going to find cost cut. We're going to do cost cutting, and there's money to be had because the village is overspending. That didn't come out so well.
Let's
That
not
didn't come out
compare
just-
District 96 to the village.
Hey,
of
it's
Riverside.
reality.
I don't think,
Well,
I don't
no,
think
the-
anybody's
yeah.
saying we shouldn't look at cost cutting either.
That's right.
I just don't think
Right.
we should take options off the table on a revenue side because we know we have to cut costs in order to operate this district into the future. I mean, every scenario shows that.
Okay.
Something has to
And we
happen.
can't
And-
regain
but
it
you
once
can't-
we do
You
it.
can't forget about the pension, the cost shift.
Well,
But-
here's the
that
thing.
could be coming down the
We've
pipe.
got, this spills into our discussion of the policy that I'm proposing that I adopted from This is Madison, Wisconsin School District that says their recommended budget levels are for the surplus, 10 to 15% reserves. It's starkly different from the 40%. 40% is really high. I don't know where that number came from. I don't know if that was an ISB recommendation. So the gloom and doom we're seeing is based upon, the red we're seeing is based upon that 40% policy, which is not a good policy. We're totally,
Well,
I
then
think
we-
we're
we-
overtaxing
Opinion, but we
ourselves.
have to discuss it in policy. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
is
Right, so
policy
that's-
The task
today.
force
It's
unanimously
today.
voted
I'm just
on that
getting the
board
discussion
policy.
started. And I'm
Yeah.
saying this is based upon a reputable school district, and, the basic premise of government is to only tax what you need. It's okay to have a little bit of surplus and reserves for what you need. 40%, and I'm not saying 10 to 15% is what Madison had, is the right, but I'm saying 40% I don't think is the right number, and so this is just a way of starting that discussion and that conversations.
Just do remember they have different cost parameters and things in Wisconsin,
Right,
you
they
know, in
don't-
terms
I don't
of,
think they're
they
in
don't
the
collective
detail.
bargain, they don't collective bargain anymore, and I don't know.
They're not $95 billion in the hole
I think
in
by
pension unfunded liability.
I think by leaving the tax levy at zero this year, we send a message, a very important message, that there's going to be some urgency in cost cutting. If we approve a tax levy increase, where's the urgency? Where's the sense of urgency to do anything?
That's our job.
Well, I
That's
think
our
it would be,
job.
I think that comes from the board, that's our
Absolutely.
job. I
I
mean,
don't know
Look,
what signal are you
yeah.
sending to, new young families that are coming into the district?
Well,
Good,
I
maybe
think-
we'll cut enrollment. It just, you know,
It sure
to
will.
me,
School
it's all
quality
gloom
goes
and
down
doom,
and
okay? No,
property
values
no,
go down and
don't get me,
nobody
no,
wants
oh.
Let's-
You know,
Doom and
ask
gloom.
gloom and
Here
doom.
it comes.
You're drinking Zach's Kool-Aid. Because it's just, it bothers me. It really bothers me that every year, every superintendent, I don't care if it's this district or that, oh, you gotta go for the max levy because we need that money. We don't need that money. Okay, you wanna save money? Let's pay the 10 million off and save almost $1 million in interest. It just, I'm tired of
Well, you were
there
taxing
you
to
go.
the
We
max.
had
I
money
never,
burning
we
a
decided
hole in
to
our-
borrow that money.
right, I
And
look at it,
decided
and,
not to
yeah,
go and to
I agree.
pay
You know
it
what?
off
Maybe-
with backing by taxpayer.
You're right, but you
levy
know what?
money, so.
When was the last time we went to the community for a referendum? What?
In 2004,
2004, what? Almost 8 years
yes.
or more that we've gone to the public.
Right, and
And
we
so in
could go
8 years,
another
we
8
haven't,
years.
right,
Right?
right.
But
And
not
we've-
under this
no.
scenario of your voting.
Okay,
Come on.
6 more years. Okay, we'll see.
Maybe not, because we've put.
I'm willing to
some
roll
of
that
those-
dice.
Yeah, you're
You've
rolling your
got-
dice with, the
But
the
then
education
you keep
system here.
taxing the community
The
to
public
the
education
max.
system
It
that we have
just,
specific
we're
You know,
well funded.
I
We're
just
well
agree with
funded.
the statement that we're stealing, they say that because you're not funding, taking away money from the kids. And the problem is that I don't necessarily agree with
Okay.
that. I think if you're not spending money wisely, and we have tons of money, we have tons of money.
That's our job.
And if we're not spending money wisely, then it's not, I don't think it's helping kids. I think it's
We have a
it's
high school
hurting them.
district that's having a hard time with their
The high
finances
school
right now.
district is a whole different ballgame.
But have we
Agreed.
spent money
But then-
wisely? I would say that we haven't. I just
It's our
use,
job.
I just,
We're the governors of this district.
well, I'm just
So
saying
let's
that,
do our job, we gotta do our job.
yeah.
Agreed.
I would just say, give 3 examples. Special education, transportation, and computers.
What's the transportation? I'm sorry, most of the transportation is basically special
Special
education.
ed.
Yeah, it's,
You're
It's
saying we're
mandated.
blowing through that budget?
I think it's required, is
It's
it required?
Most of
well,
it's
it's an $800,000 budget item. I know it's required, but it's driven by a special education program that has gotten,
It's growing.
it's gotten, it is growing, but it has, some would say that it has grown too fast, too far.
And we're looking at that, right? I mean, that's, we have new special education professionals coming in here, looking at all our policies and procedures, protocols, making sure we have consistency across the district. But we haven't gotten the report back from them yet. And so we're taking away funds from them before we get those results, whether or not there's money to be saved there.
They're not losing any money. We have money in the budget. We have those reserves. Nobody's gonna starve. Not this year, not next year, and not for pretty far down the road. We're okay. I will be okay. I'm confident we'll be okay. And we're gonna do some cost cutting, and we're gonna get everything online, get a policy that's reasonable as far as what we're keeping in our reserves, and no one's gonna starve. Not in the near future.
Does,
Or the long future.
does anybody want to discuss, since Mike brought it up, the option of paying off the debt?
I think
on the
that's a,
table.
yeah, I think
We have
that's
a
a.
motion
right,
on the table.
that's
We have a
fine.
motion?
Look,
Yeah.
I think we discussed at another meeting, because if we
Yes,
do that might affect our fund balance and our fund balance policy. I think we address that at another time. There's a motion on the floor to go half. I said we vote on it, and I think we know where that's going. I think we ultimately, the next motion is gonna be 0.
I wouldn't mind entertaining that. I mean, if people are saying that we have money that should be available, then why not pay down the debt?
Right, and look, to Art's point, yeah, I voted for it, but, after seeing Zach's brilliant presentation, perhaps we should, pay it down, because that's a lot. That's $1 million a year, and maybe we can save that million. We just look at other alternatives. And I just think, I agree with Rachel's point. It's not gloom and doom just because we don't vote for one levy or two or three. I just think it'll bear it out. And if we don't, it'll be 14 years since we went to the community for a referendum. And I think it just.
During which time the high school be looking for a rental, and the
Fine,
village
give
could be
them,
looking at a
give
referendum.
them. I think it just burns people to the core that we have all this money and we're just sitting on it. And it's money that they've been taxed in, that they've been taxed on, that they're tired of it. I just say, there's a motion on the floor. I don't think we're going to change our mind. We vote this sucker down and we're going down to zero. I'm sorry. I say let's vote.
Do we have a second?
Pardon me?
We have a second, right?
Yeah, should we just repeat the motion, which was to vote on scenario 2, which was a reduced levy at 0.85 CPI, which would be an approximate increase in the tax levy extension in the amount of $198,139. All right. Juanita?
David Kadama?
No.
Michael O'Brien?
Boy, I don't know. Wait. David voted no, and you just really confused me, David.
Yeah, I did.
That's my charm.
It's in there.
So you're, I just want to clarify that you are not voting for the reduced levy?
Correct.
Okay.
I vote no.
Arthur Perry?
Yes.
Randy Brockway?
No.
Lisa Gaynor?
No.
Wait, this is for, wait a minute.
This is second
This is to vote for this proposal of a
0.85.
reduced amount. So I'm saying that I'm not accepting that as the option.
All right, not accepting that as the option, but we've already voted down the
Right, so
full
we're gonna-
levy. Okay.
So we
I'll
have to
accept zero, too.
I'm
Or
voting
December.
yes because
Or
I'd
December
rather
vote.
get something,
Or
increase
December.
some increase than none, but obviously nobody.
I believe there's
David
there's
really
another
put a wrench
option
in
that
the
we could go
voting.
for, so, go.
Right.
All right.
Go. I'm not gonna accept it.
Rachel Morella?
No.
And Mary Rose Mangia?
Yes?
Yes.
So in
Motion
December,
does not
are
pass.
we going to be proposing something that people will accept?
I'm sorry, what do you mean by December? You mean on a special meeting?
Yeah, or we need to pass a levy,
Correct.
correct? And so we don't have, right, this failed. This
Correct,
one
this
also
failed,
failed.
right.
So the proposal that was put forth has also failed,
Correct.
right?
So right now, we have no, we're not past the maximum?
So we don't have
Oh,
we don't have a levy. We
Correct.
don't have funds for the coming year.
Correct.
So now, okay, so what happens now?
I put a motion on the floor.
Put a motion on the floor that people will accept.
That we think
Four
people are
people
going to
will
accept.
accept.
That four
Yeah,
people
that's
will accept.
exactly it.
That's exactly
Yeah.
it.
So does anyone have anything? Does anyone have anything to propose for? Maybe
Yeah,
not
you
this,
know what,
not this meeting, but
I
for
make a
future.
motion that our levy amount for this levy is zero. That's what I'm going to go with.
Second?
So a 0% increase.
0% increase,
So
correct.
flat down.
Flat.
$0.
So that was moved and it was seconded.
So can we vote on a levy scenario of 0% increase over 2012? Over the 2012 levy?
Okay. Michael O'Brien?
Yes.
Rachel Morella?
Yes.
Randy Brockway?
Yes.
Lisa Gaynor?
No.
David Kadama?
No.
Arthur Perry?
No.
Mary Rose Mangia?
No.
All right, well, Mary Rose, you seem to be a swing. Give us a number in your head that'll work So we can move on. I agree.
I voted for the
I agree.
200,000, so
We
now
can-
we
if
have
you
no
wanna put
levy
that
that
back
nobody.
on, or-
Come on, let's go.
Now
We
we-
gotta think, you know,
Now we don't, now we have no, I guess we've passed nothing, is that correct?
not acceptable.
Probably the most
No,
effective
we
thing
can't
we've
do
done
that.
all year.
So where do we go from here?
Someone needs to make a
We need
motion
to
that's gonna
get
get your yes
consensus
vote.
somehow.
All right, would it help to table this and have a special meeting
No.
for people to think about this?
Yeah, I mean, I think, just to be fair, and, I do appreciate everyone's opinions. I know we disagree on things, but I don't think there's gonna be, hopefully, any hard feelings. I just think, you're the swing vote. Why don't you make the motion and, put that out there, wherever it was. I think you'll get David's vote, and we move on.
All righty, thank you. I will, can I put forward the vote again of a $200,000 levy, which would be a reduced levy of 0.85 CPI, which would be an approximate increase in the tax levy extension of $198,000.
Would you not accept a full
Sec-
CPI?
Second.
I wouldn't know, that wasn't the
So
motion I made.
1.7, okay.
Second.
Would you call the roll, please, Juanita?
Lisa Gaynor,
Aye.
Rachel Morello,
No.
Michael O'Brien,
No.
Arthur Perry,
Aye.
Randy Brockway,
No.
David Kadama,
No.
Okay, what number are you willing to
Mary
accept?
CPI.
Okay, well,
Aye.
that's interesting.
We have no consensus. Okay.
Wow.
At least we know where we don't stand.
Play a hardball here.
So, I think it's an interesting tactic, David. It's pretty good. I have to say it is. I do. As much as we disagree, I think it's not bad. So let's go down this path. If we don't come up with anything, what happens with your? I guess filibuster. I will say you're going to start reading.
We have a major problem.
You're going to start reading Cat in a Hat to Kit. So I mean, what happens? We can't present anything, or we
We have no money to fund this district.
So it'd be zero.
It'd be zero. It'd be $0.
We'll be spending our fund balance, I guess, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's, if you want
To
to,
spend.
that's what we'll be doing.
So by you not accepting anything less, the levy amount will be zero, which is what Rachel, Randy, and myself want.
You want a $0 no funding of this district.
Yeah.
Right, if that's what you want.
For
then
this
that's-
come-
Yeah,
This
but the
is coming
thing
here,
is,
yes.
okay, so that's David's position.
Mhm.
Okay, we see your position, Michael. We've got two people willing to compromise in the middle. Okay?
Yeah.
Is there anybody else willing to compromise from the zero position to move up? Actually,
That's a good
what
point.
did you vote, Lisa? No?
I voted in the middle for that.
Okay,
one.
so we got three people who are willing to meet in the middle.
Right, so the same goes for yours as his.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
did. Yeah, one could say I'm obstinate.
No.
It's just that it is such a long-term impact.
It's
You
the
really
long-term
believe it?
I do.
Well, I mean, the numbers basic. I'm not saying, just saying that we will lose $2 million over the next 10 years, or 400, or 4 million. I mean,
Oh, Mary Rose, I'm confused because I think that we've discussed a lot how much we're totally overtaxing our citizens, and we really are. As everybody who opens their bill, we are being overtaxed, and it's not right. And I understand that we're looking out for the interest of District 96, and that's our number one concern. But we've got, I think the village is okay now, but the District 208 is very hard up right now, and we're getting killed here. I think in comparison to every other governmental entity in the world, we're doing too well. We're completely taxing so much more than we need. I don't think this year, the scenario is, and I know we were comparing it as our balanced policy is a 40%. We're good for another, till at least 2018, was it 2019? We're good. That's assuming we take nothing. So I don't see it, we're losing. We're just not taking more than our lion's share anymore. which has been going on for way too long, since the referendum passed in 2004.
I think if there was some way to preserve the tax base, where it would be 400,000 this year, I'd feel a little more comfortable with this. I feel the middle ground enables us to give our taxpayers some relief and to continue to investigate this and see if there are ways to continue not taking the maximum levy without impairing our tax base. I know.
I do. I admire the tactic, David, and you're saying it at FBI. But if we do nothing, there's no funding for the school. I'm okay with that. But you might not take it in. I think I'll sleep okay. But by you not voting for that, at least taking the compromise, now you're getting nothing.
You're not accepting the compromise either.
It's a good point. No.
Mary Rose, we haven't even started to get serious about cost cutting. And I know we've had a lot on our plates these first 5 months. It seems like it's been one crisis after another. But the more we meet, the more we find out that spending has not been watched very closely on a lot of fronts. And I would feel so much better if we said no this year and worked hard for the next 12 months. And if, we needed to pass it next year at this time, we have a chance every 12 months, correct?
You are losing the 400,000 for the next 10 years.
Yeah, I understand that math, but I'm just saying that we can vote for a tax levy next year.
But you'll never make
But you'll never make it up.
You'll never make it up.
Okay. I understand that.
$400,000 every year for the next 10 years. It's infinite.
But that's okay, you can reevaluate,
And that's
We have
when
money.
that's when
We're good.
you go to referendum, and the price that the taxpayer pays will be greater.
And
It will.
well, the other thing, Randy, is nothing precludes us from looking at expenses. And later on in this meeting, we are going to look at. We have a motion. We will be discussing reducing the superintendent's spending limit to allow us to get closer to expenses, and also in our planning process and budgeting, which will start much earlier this year. We'll be able to really look more closely at spending. And again, we can also continue to pass reduced levies in the future as well.
There's nothing that sends a stronger message, though, than saying we're cutting off it here. That is sometimes it's a poker move that you need to kind of force
Who's the
the
message
hand.
you're sending it to?
The message is sent to the administration,
To the
we need to
staff?
really
To the
cut.
administration?
We
To
need
staff?
We need to cut, and we need to do a lot of cutting, and we need to.
It's not just an attack at the administration, it's also to our staff, to our staff,
It's
to our teachers.
it's to everyone.
A staff
Everyone.
that,
Right?
if you go
No,
back
no,
to,
no, it's- Right, it hits everyone. It hits everyone, it's not just
I'll
the
keep going.
administration,
All
not just the
I'll go
administration.
back to a chart Art shared with us that shows test scores kind of flat, but nothing but spending, for administration just going way up.
Right, and
Test
we gotta
scores
raise
remain
the bar,
same.
because, the bar is being raised by us, by the state, and it should be raised by us. We gotta step it up.
Okay, what is having a 40% reserve, how does that accomplish that mission? We're putting too much emphasis on spending.
On the
and-
financial health of our
Financial health,
institution.
yes, we're way healthy,
Yes.
people are,
Yes,
I
and this
mean,
is what sets us
envious-
apart from other school districts.
Yes, and we will still, even if we're at 10%, which is the low end of the recommended policy, we're still better off probably than 99% of the school districts out there. We're good.
And that's
How do you
nobody's
manage
paid.
the risk of all these potential changes?
You can't manage it. That's why you
can't
have
manage
to.
it?
If we
So-
can't
so-
manage
so-
the risk,
so-
how
so-
is it- how can it
but
be
you
fair?
guys,
If
you
you
guys
can't
want to,
manage
no,
the
no.
risk,
You
then
guys
you
want to
are the
manage
governor
that
of
risk
this
by just,
district.
yeah,
You're
we'll
not
just
prepared
fund it.
to
We'll
do
just
Have
keep funding it.
some cushion, a 10 to 15%. think about it this way. It's like sitting here in your own personal finance and trying to
That's how I
envision
think about this.
every doom and gloom scenario. You'll drive yourself crazy because that you just can't. You have to look at what's foreseeable, and I think we looked at
This is
some
what
of the
the
things
40%
foreseeable.
does. It allows us not to be
40%.
so focused on every little crisis that comes up. Oh, the roof is needs to be replaced. Holy cow, can we afford this? Well, yes, we can.
Well, I agree that we should have reserves for that, but I think it doesn't have to be 40%. We'd be good at 10
And what
to 15%.
about the technology? And what about, other things, the sewer line,
Let's not-
You got a whole, this is like managing, you got old buildings, like managing an old house, come on. Does anyone have an old house here? Constantly doing repairs on that house.
Didn't we just
Same
spend
thing.
$500,000 on computers this year? With better, wiser spending, that could have been $200,000. Could it not?
Or less.
Or less.
I could,
We bought $1,000 laptops.
but not.
They're
so
on the
again,
market
we're-
now
we're
for
punishing
$250.
Because of
Okay, so there's been a lot of bad decisions made in the
So-
past.
there's needs for greater governance.
Yeah, nobody's disputing that. Nobody is disputing that, but it comes down to what your appetite is for,
Risk.
risk and
For risk.
knowing what you're going to be able to do into the future, and investing in, in the school system here.
I think we're more than well covered. I think, I
But,
know
yeah,
we are more than well covered.
You want to cover that risk by taxing the people of the community. You're okay with that?
I am. I live here. I moved here for the school district, and I'm on the board because I want to ensure that excellence is maintained going forward. That is 100% why I'm here,
And I think
and
we
I'm
can
proud to
maintain
say
that.
it.
Well, and that's
And I
where
think
our
we can
funding
maintain
comes
that.
from.
Yeah.
It's where it comes from.
Well, I don't know. All right, so I think we know where everyone's at, and we're a bit of an impasse in respect to our agenda and trying to move on. Can we? I hate to do it because, my God, I see you guys enough every Tuesday.
Every week.
in there. So,
three
what
Tuesdays in a
if we
row, yeah.
go to special meeting? When would this next special? We have to have some kind of amount, whether it's zero. At by what, December 10th
16th.
was it 16th? So would our next special meeting be at the Ed Committee meeting at December 3rd? Is that what we do? We call a special meeting, try and work out an agreement or something ahead of time, that we meet a half hour before the Ed Committee meeting? I mean, I don't know what else to do.
We need a
have
game
to-
plan of what is it that people need?
How can we get to consensus?
How do we get to consensus
Well,
for? How do you get?
I don't know.
to
Hey,
more
look,
votes in it?
you won't move off that, and I won't either. I don't
Came
know.
down
I
from
can't.
4.9 to
Yeah, you did. I agree. That's a good point, David.
I'm making some good points.
You are. It just, it is.
So if we set up a special meeting, say 2 weeks out, or somewhere like that,
That's the third.
Yeah.
okay, the public can speak. The public can call us up. They can send us emails. They can influence us,
Yes.
correct? And they can come to the next meeting and speak in the public session.
Yes, and I've also have an agreement from our township assessor to attend that meeting on December 3rd if we want it, and she can answer any other questions about the impact of our vote. And I do think there is an impact, and perhaps I don't know if there's any cost-cutting questions we want to get out before then, that perhaps if we Zach can address if there's any work that can be done in that area.
And look, and I did when I ran for the school. I made a commitment that I wouldn't vote for any tax levy, and Mary Rose, I will acknowledge that you had the political courage to step up and at least try and seek a compromise. And I don't know if I'm there yet, but I'm certainly willing to listen to other people or other citizens and talk about people and what they think. And maybe in 2 weeks, I can't make any promises, but I don't know.
And
I don't know.
I mean, I'll be continuing to think about it too. It is, I mean, you're basically, don't think of it as giving $200,000 or $400,000 of tax relief. You're giving for 4 million, and, yeah, I mean, it just compiles, so it is, it is a big step, and,
Yeah, it's 2 weeks. Maybe you can take me out to lunch and pay for the bill and tell me why we should do it. And then Rachel, maybe you can take me out to lunch too. So I don't know, I'm very on the fence. But, David, I admire it very, very much. It gave me something to think about. I don't think I'm sorry, I would love to have made this decision tonight to move on. It just doesn't look like we're going to do it. So can we maybe address that
table
special
this
meeting
then.
for a December 3rd meeting? Do we have to make a motion to do that now, or can we just schedule it?
well, I'll
Can we
I'll call.
expand the capacity of our email account so that we can get all the
Maybe. All right.
No, we'll just
So that's a call out to the public,
call a
right?
special meeting. Does anybody have any, well, I guess we can work out the timing, but it doesn't, this is an important vote, so I presume we don't want to do it at 6 p.m. I suppose we could move the Ed committee up to 6. Does anybody have any, while we're here, any suggestions on what time on the 3rd?
Ed committee's got a big agenda, right? Haven't met in a while.
So we
I don't want-
could have our special meeting, say at 7, and Ed committee following?
Okay,
Why
Well,
can
that's,
I?
you know-
No, Ed committee's at 7, isn't it?
yes, it's at 7. We would have to change the timing.
That's 7:30.
Ed committee's at 7. What do you think, Art?
I think
2
we have
hours?
I think we have a big agenda. You heard some preview of that exciting agenda today, so.
It's going to generate just as much discussion as all of this.
As long as you guarantee that we have a levy resolution.
Yeah, well, we can't do anything.
And on the
We
education
might as well
agenda,
cancel the ed committee because there will be, if there's no levy, there will be no school.
yeah.
Right.
On the education committee meeting, that includes, we're having discussions about ECE and the ELL and a lot of those discussions, other stuff that, and that's beyond just, that's considered within the special education
There's a special
group,
education.
or is that in addition to special education?
All right, what time are we going to have this special meeting? 6?
I think we're talking about 7 o'clock.
And then we move Ed at 7:30?
Yes. Does that work?
Yeah, that's fine. All right, do we need to
Wait,
make a
that-
motion, or are we doing that? We're doing it?
No, I don't think so. I can call the
Huh?
special,
No, that's-
I have the
all
authority
right,
to call
that's
the
fine.
special
Okay.
meeting.
Suppose.
Somebody told me earlier I could have decided not to even call this vote and basically effectively done the same thing.
Right.
So,
All right.
all right. All right, thank you. And moving on.
Yeah.
All right, our next one is the approval of the resolution authorizing intervention in the the PTAB proceedings. And this would be, just continuing to intervene on the PTAB motion, with the cooperative.
We just need a resolution from the attorney to formalize this. We approved it as an action item at the September meeting, but we did not make a resolution, so all you have to do is, we have to
Chairman,
record it.
Chairman, could you review what PTAP means, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, Property Tax Appeal Board.
Thank you.
And so this would be particularly in the matter of the, well, any and all, but particularly in the golf course, and their particular appeal.
Do we need to read this?
Would you like me to?
I think
This is
the
a
audience-
resolution authorizing intervention in the proceedings before the State of Illinois Property Tax Appeal Board. Whereas an owner or manager of a parcel or parcels of real property located within the boundaries of the State of Illinois has the right to file an appeal challenging the assessed value of the parcel or parcels of real property with the State of Illinois Property Tax Appeal Board, PTAB, and whereas an appeal before the PTAB seeks a reduction in the assessed value of the parcel or parcels And whereas a taxing district has the right to intervene in the proceedings before the PTAB in order to protect the taxing district's revenue interest in the assessed value of the parcel or parcels, and whereas the Board of Education, Riverside Public School District 96, the board has determined that it is necessary, desirable, and advantageous and in the public interest to defend the board's real property tax base by intervening in the PTAB appeals filed on parcels within the boundaries of the board. Now therefore, be it hereby resolved by the Board of Education of Riverside Public School District number 96 in Cook County as follows, that the board finds that all of the recitals contained above are true and correct, and that the same are hereby incorporated herein by reference. The board authorizes Frantic Radelet PC as its legal representative to file a request to intervene in appeal proceedings in all 2010-2012 assessment appeals filed at the PTAB for which the board received notice from the local county Board of Review. Substitute in as counsel for the board in assessment appeals in which a request to intervene has already been filed, and represent the board's interest in these proceedings. All motions and resolutions or parts thereof in conflict with the provisions of this resolution are, to the extent of such conflict, hereby repealed. If any section, paragraph, clause, or provision of this resolution shall be held invalid, the invalidity of such section, paragraph, clause, or provision shall not affect any of the other sections, paragraph, clauses, or provisions of this resolution. This resolution shall be in full force and effect upon its adoption. And this particular form will make note of the board member who moved this and seconded it as part of the resolution. And so may I have a motion?
You have that motion for me.
What?
I mean, especially considering that if we're not gonna get the full levy, we better have some protection, against these property tax appeals.
Collecting taxes from.
Thank you, Michael.
So Mary Rose, could you give us a plain English version of that?
The plain English version is that there are properties within our district who are appealing their assessments, which will result in loss of revenue to us. And we have, in a couple of meetings back, signed an intergovernmental agreement among many.
Right.
To intervene, we have hired a attorney, or authorized Frantic Radelet to represent us. And this is a resolution to intervene in these property tax appeal board hearings.
So we've authorized them to represent us, but we haven't authorized them to intervene?
Yes.
No. The intergovernmental agreement just states that we resolve to participate in this cooperative to
So that's
to
what
share
we're-
costs and stuff to.
That's what we've
do
done
this.
so far then?
So far.
Okay.
This we have to, is probably a legal requirement that we have to say, we're granting this particular law firm or we are appointing them.
We haven't
to-
acted on our behalf yet, have we?
Yeah,
this
because
looks
we
like it
paid
is.
it, we paid an.
Oh, we paid an invoice,
invoice.
yes, we started, they're starting to do
We
that.
paid,
Well, we paid for an assessment, we
So on
paid
the
for an
Riverside
appraisal.
Country
Was
Club.
that what we paid for an appraisal?
Through them.
Yes, but through them, but this is just formalizing
Just
the
give some
agreement.
context, hey, Zach, before you go, just confirmation. So this is trying to address some of these issues of, in the past, I don't know, how many years, there's been about $3 million in property tax refunds? What was that period? It was that period from,
4 years.
in a 4-year period, we've had to give refunds of almost $3 million. That hits our current calendar year. For tax years, like years ago, even 10 years ago.
all right, I'm just trying to understand in
I just want to
plain
give you
English
context
what-
on that.
I
what
noticed
that
that
resolution was
the
all about.
resolution does say here in section 2 that it's for appeal proceedings in all 2010 and to 2012. So it's not open-ended, it's just for these specific
Years.
years.
So we would have to defend ourselves for something that goes 5 years back then.
Well, no, they would just,
Well, our law firm would cover us.
Our law firm would, yes, right.
or wouldn't there be just another group agreement? If
If
they,
you could.
because,
If we,
Or amend
Yeah.
this one.
Potentially, yeah.
right, I mean,
but
like,
we
if
don't
they're
have
just-
it.
Next year, we'll have another one that says from 2010 to
Right.
2013.
Uh-huh.
because this is what they're going after, the golf club is going after this particular
Correct.
time period now.
And this is a resolution for us, specifically for Riverside District 96 to intervene.
Okay. All right, are we voting? We have a motion.
Yes.
Yes, we got a motion in a second, right?
Who seconded?
I do.
Okay.
Randy Brockway,
Yes.
Lisa Gaynor,
Aye.
David Kadama,
Aye.
Rachel Morella,
Aye.
Michael O'Brien,
Aye.
Arthur Perry,
Aye.
Mary Rose Mandia.
Aye. We passed this resolution to intervene in property tax appeals. Next. New business item. To discuss policy 460, purchases and contracts, which addresses the superintendent's spending limit. May we have a motion? Oh, no, I'm sorry, no
I think we
motion.
just, no, it's all right. I think we can put
New
discussion.
business, Sorry.
Sorry, this is something that I brought up. I know everyone else has talked about, amongst ourselves about this, as I understand it. The current limit is $25,000. We can't go any higher. That the superintendent does not have to seek any approval to spend, money below $25,000. That's well, maybe we could go higher. We can't because that's the, Illinois law. The maximum is $25,000. I think most of us are looking at maybe reducing that. I don't know what level that amount, but I just think it's that perhaps we do a change in policy. I also heard suggestions that anything over, $5,000 or $7,000 or some dollar amount, that the superintendent or director of finance and operations always gets a second or third quote. Any other ideas or what we should do, or keep the policy as the same? I think
I think we need to change that, and I think some of the situations that we've dealt with recently indicate that I think the board wants to be involved in more of that decision-making process, and also just to be able to, and I think the policy I've put forward, this is Madison, and obviously it wouldn't be something we'd adopt word for word, but it's something we should discuss further in finance of what we like and what we don't like in it, but at least it kind of, for certain purchases, force the administration to get other quotes. I think here in this proposed policy just says, get at least 3 quotes, that you don't necessarily need board approval, but just get 3 quotes from, you're gonna spend between this amount and this amount. So I think it's a good idea. I support that. And it just gives us more oversight, better
I
oversight.
guess my
control.
comment is, there was some language in the policy that you attached that I liked, but my overriding concern is what number is a good number to not have special meetings all the time.
Right.
And
Exactly.
we've got to come to a sense of that, because we could be here every week having a special meeting to approve something if the dollar amount is too low, which then stops progress.
what are you comfortable with?
I don't know. I need input from the staff as well. I mean, what majority of, where's that limit? There's got to be a point that they do business in, and what is it? So that's where I'm at. I'm like, I need to have some more data to understand how many decisions are made. I mean, if we had a $5,000 limit, how many meetings does that translate to?
You probably have one every week. I'm
Well,
being serious.
we
We provided
kinda
you
do
with-
now.
Well,
right? Yeah, but is that where you want to go?
No, I understand.
It's not where I
So
wanna go.
let me,
Well, you
Rachel.
have in front of you
Okay.
your list of anticipated current expenditures from the past month, from October 21st to November 19th. And you have one of them that's $2,600, and everything else is over $5,000. And that's what we've been bringing to your attention.
Well, this policy that I set forth doesn't say that you need board approval for every transaction under $5,000, over $5,000, or even between 5 and 10. It simply says, get 3 quotes. And it even says 10 to 15, at the discretion of the superintendent, get 3 quotes. It's not saying board approval. The question becomes, where do we would want to put board approval in there, or something to suggest that just say, have the quotes available upon request by the board members.
Well, let me,
That's
you know, you got,
Okay.
yeah, I need $25,000, guys, that's a good, what are your thoughts?
And I
Let's
want
not
to preface
beat
that
around
by
the
saying,
bush.
I think we've demonstrated in the past 3 months that we've come to you with a lot of issues, a lot of concerns, and then also what we're anticipating our current expenditures are, and also, documenting what our current expenditures are, and also sharing with you what our anticipated expenditures are. So I think $15,000.
Okay, all right.
And
Now-
I also think that piece of report is a significant improvement from where we've been.
I agree with what you're saying. Those that go before you make the rules, and you know, who's to say that, you know, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years down the road that this isn't a problem, and the board that this year, you know, 8, 9, 10 years down the road, so well, who thought this policy up of $25,000? I just think that, you know, I guess if I was since I'm a taxpayer, I like to know that the board is paying attention to expenditure. I think $15,000 is reasonable, lowering that amount, and then putting in Rachel's policy language that we get 2 or 3 quotes.
How do you feel about the quote thing? Because we just talked about this morning. I was looking at the proposed, you know, budget for the IT priorities identified by Client First. I think some of those are important things, all of them, they need to be done. I just don't know if those numbers make sense. Based on some independent research on my own, I think they might be a little high, but ultimately, whatever the budget is, I'd like to see, you know, multiple sources for vendors, multiple quotes where possible. So I personally think it might make sense, but, you know, procedurally, I don't know what that means.
Is there any thought of what type of expenditures we really want to look at? I mean, if it's $20,000 worth of paper for 5 schools, do we care about that? Is that as important to us?
Of Apple computer equipment.
So it would definitely be IT equipment. In other words, is there a verbal way to describe what we want to really be involved with?
Well, I would say that for $20,000 worth of paper, it'd be easy to get 3 bids.
Oh, yeah.
I think we already do.
We already do the bidding for
All right.
all paper.
Well, maybe we always do. Maybe that's a bad example, but how about the $450,000 worth of computer equipment? You know, we didn't get 3 bids.
We didn't need a lower threshold for that.
For that.
I mean, we had 25,000 was the threshold, and it was approved at the superintendent level.
Procedurally, yeah.
Well,
but
that
Well,
was-
where's the see, this is my issue is that no matter what your limit is, we as the governance body here have to make sure that there's procedures in place that we get informed what it is, whether it's 25,000 or obviously that $25,000, even at 25,000, 15,000, if it was 0, you know, we're not getting informed.
What's the process by which it gets
Oh, yeah,
approved?
The
Gets
process, the
referred for
procedure needs
approval?
to be improved.
How do we get better informed?
What do you,
I think
We
this is-
started
we
already
We're starting it
tonight.
right now.
Right.
We're
But-
having these
but
anticipated
getting-
expenses and making sure we are aware of them.
I don't see a problem getting 3 bids for, that's maybe
Oh,
if it's over 15,000 or above, or,
But that goes back to procedure.
Right.
Goes back to procedure. So the procedure is if it's 15,000, if we set a threshold of 15,000 or whatever that is, and we had 3 bids, that's procedure.
all right, so
It's not
obviously,
necessarily giving approval of the bid, of the dollar amount, it's the procedure that we need to follow to ensure we've got a competitive price.
okay,
Bob,
well,
but
that's
could you see
fine.
us
We
also
need,
where
we
getting
need
3
3
bids
bids
would
in the
be
file.
difficult
It needs to
on
be
some
Right.
recorded somewhere. I mean, they
No,
can't
it
be
just
verbal
delays
bids,
it.
they
No,
have to
but
be
that's
written
not
bids.
happened in procedure in the past. Is what 3 bids is. I mean, it's happened, but it's not happened.
You lost me.
It's also not happened.
Well, go back to your Apple computer example,
Okay, what,
and your suggestion was we should have 3 bids for when we're doing all the Apple computers. I don't think we did that in the last.
Well, but I also
previously.
don't think it was submitted for approval, bid or otherwise.
No, I don't think
Higher
it was
approval.
Yeah,
Fire
yeah,
approval.
fire approval.
Right.
Right.
You know, in other words, if they don't submit it for, if it's not submitted for approval, then it won't be.
Whatever we decide, we can't vote on it tonight. It's got to go through one of the committees, and then we vote on it, right? Is that
Well,
me?
because you need
I-
language, right?
It's a finance issue, so we can kick it to
That's
Lisa.
what I want. Can we put
If
it
that's
in?
okay.
Well, it's gonna be finance, numbers, policy, language. It's gonna be both
We're
of
not
us.
prevented from doing
We don't
policies
have
and
to
finance.
refer
I know
to
you're trying to
committee.
keep
I
it
don't.
over.
I don't think we do. We can.
I think we put it in one committee, and because I mean, why do you want? Why does Lisa want it in finance? I mean, we're all committees as a whole. If we sit in policy and vet this policy out and bring it to vote, 2 or 3 meetings from now, I think putting it in 2 committees just gums it up. Can we just
Yes.
put it in policy?
Yeah, I don't think there's any particular reason it has to go to any committee unless people just want it that way. But
Well, somebody has to develop.
Somebody has to
language, and we have to agree to
develop
the
language.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a process that needs to occur, right?
all right.
Do we need another
I don't
subcommittee?
think that we're ready to adopt just white out Madison, Wisconsin.
No,
r-
we're
Riverside.
not. You're not.
But maybe some people are, but
What do you want to do? You want to put this in policy and put it on the next agenda to come up with wording and get it out of policy to vote on it?
I'm fine with that. It's just a matter of, like we've discussed at the policy committee today, is what priority you want to put on this.
Right.
And where do you want to
Which-
place it.
Which we may, of course, it's big priority, and then, it just, I don't know.
So Michael, this was your initiative, so it's a priority for you.
It's us. I would say if we could have a policy in place, I'll be optimistic and say end of the school year. I mean, if you look at when we went through it, we had the, it does, well, it's 25,000, let's spend, but you're not like that, and I appreciate, by the report, I think we're on a good track here. It concerns me what's gonna happen down the road well after we're gone. So I think we try and put it through policy with a goal, I like where we're going now, but we put it with the goal to try and get something by the end of the school year. I think that's pretty
I
realistic
think we
with
sound
me.
pretty
Commit to
close
that.
on
I
language
think
now.
that's good.
We
Okay.
could probably, I think we could even hammer it out in December. We have a proposed policy and we had a
But
couple.
he's
I
gotta
know,
put
you
it
know,
in his
My
rotation.
agenda is
He's
full
gotta-
for December, so.
January.
I think we put it on
January's
January's
full.
agenda, January's full, all right, how about
Yeah, well, we
February?
discussed this.
Yeah,
Take
I
it
know.
down.
Well,
Take a number of the
So-
the policies that we were gonna look at, that we were gonna look at additionally, was gonna start in February, March.
Okay, let's go
So,
February,
okay,
let's bring
so-
on the February
alright.
agenda to put it through in policy language and then.
Because we have a whole other list of priority
Yeah.
policy issues that we were supposed to, that I presented back in August, September.
remember all those nice ones that we pushed out till April?
Yeah.
We made room, right?
Right. So here,
Okay,
here we go. Again, we gotta, we're adding more,
I understand.
so.
But you're okay with putting it on February?
February.
Okay,
We'll
All
start
right.
that thing. With the commitment that we'll get it finalized by
end of the year,
end of the year.
I agree. Okay.
All right. Thank you. Next item, talk about technology infrastructure, and specifically, Mike has a report, has done a little research for us.
I have, I will preface that if anyone wants to chime in and add their 2 cents, that's fine. It definitely concerns me that our technology policy is, our technology program, I think if you ask 8 different people, you're gonna get 8 different answers. I'm convinced that I don't know that much, and the more I ask people, the more I get confused. So it greatly concerns me. I do think the money that we spent for the client first audit was well spent in the work they did, but I think it kind of stops there when they came in and started suggesting all these things and priorities and looking at to spend X amount of dollars over the last 3 years. As a taxpayer, that really concerned me to try and figure out what the best interest is. And I think other members of the board were concerned, but I know other members of the community were concerned, and I will publicly acknowledge Chris McCarthy, who I saw talking with Zach after a meeting. So, you know what, I'll give Chris a call and just ask for his input. Chris is an IT guy, seemed to have a good working knowledge, so I did seek Chris out for his opinion, and he did do some research and brought to the attention to me a co-op program called Illini Cloud. And I brought this up the last meeting, not to digress. Illini Cloud is a co-op made up of other IT professionals in the district who are kind of pooling resources together. So with that knowledge, you know, Chris, you know, sought these people out, brought me in the conversation, and I had a phone call to one of the IT people of Illini Cloud to ask what kind of services they do. They were able to look at the client first report because that was public knowledge, and the guy went through and gave a couple of opinions, and you know, anywhere from, you know, they believe that they can help us with some of the services, and from there I had him look at our, you know, 30, 60, 90 day plan, what he thought he could help us out with. And it was at that point that I said I would touch base with him later, and we had a conference call with some other Illini Cloud people, and Art Perry was kind enough to get on the conference call where we talked to Illini Cloud for about 45 minutes, and looking at the 3 priorities I think were identified from the last meeting were backup, email service, and expanding our LAN and WAN. And in our discussion, they identified that they felt they could help us out cost-effective wise for backup and the merging to a new email system. And the reason why they say backup is because their concept is that we pay for only what we need, that we don't buy a bunch of servers and only, you know, run 50% of the server's capacity. We move the servers off and store the data and the backup in their on their servers. It's then they started getting into discussions of, well, how many terabytes and kilobytes do you guys back up, and what do you guys back up? I'm like, I have no idea. And so I told them that we would discuss it at this meeting and try and figure out a plan of action. Art can also attribute. The other thing that I found nice about Illini Cloud is it kept bringing up different ideas. They mentioned that, you know, that we are a power school. We do use Power School. It's a Pearson product. Their estimation was that we do back up the Power School information and data on Pearson server, and that Pearson charges a good penny for it because Illini Cloud said that they would host the Pearson Power School data on their servers at a very much reduced cost. So that got my attention. If Art has anything to add or anyone to ask any questions, I'm willing to throw that in the mix now.
Yeah, I did participate in the conference call. I was able to ask a few questions. I thought they had an interesting value proposition that's very compelling. They support school districts and public school districts in the state. Their biggest customers, the people they deal with the day-to-day, are directors of IT, finance and operations people, and superintendents in districts throughout the state. So, and I did mention this before, that I always thought that some solution like Illini Cloud would be part of the mix. And I definitely hope that whatever proposals come to us as a board for some of the services that we need, that they would be probably a good candidate for those.
Yeah, and they did freely admit that, you know, looking older, there are some things they believe they could help out with, and other things they believe that they wouldn't be able to help out. But I think it goes that what we talked about at the last meeting, that the directive was we can't just be reliant on client first, that we want other options, and I think this is a good option.
All right. Where do we go from here? I think, Bob, that you've said in the past you feel we really well, I guess we go next is to get other competitive bids for other vendors, consultants.
Well, let's be fair. to Bob, as we were talking about this, one of the points that she made when we were going at one of our meetings, blah, blah, blah. She's like, you guys made this a priority. All she did was look into the situation and did the best that she could to give us, an option or some kind of direction. In my mind, I felt we were moving too fast and trying to commit to everything, commit to all the spending, which, I'm sorry, the spending bothers me, that I thought, well, let's try and enlist people in the community and get their feedback and get other people. And in my mind, I think we are slowing down, but I'm okay with slowing down based on the amount of dollars that we could potentially spend or not spend over the next year or two. So
Hey, what does slowing down mean? Just
I
go to
don't know
recommendation
what
to
what do you
Bobna
guys
and Zach and
what do you guys want to do? Do you want to try and solve some of these problems now, or do you want to mean solve the problems? That means Illini Cloud, whether it's Illini Cloud or another vendor, would have to come in and talk with probably Vern and Matt either on the phone to ask those what are we backing up, because I don't accept the report that we don't back up any of our data. I don't. Talking with Illini Cloud, he felt that some of the data we might back up at Hauser server, and then at the end of the week we back it up at the AIM server. I don't know that, and I think we need to find someone in District 96 that can answer those questions, whether it's now or later, but also engage someone who wants to at least give us a ballpark figure on some of those priorities.
Mike, you had mentioned that if we're able to supply some basic information for some of the services that Illini Cloud can provide, they would maybe be able to present a WebEx presentation of what they can contribute. And even though I don't know that we're ready to implement anything like that, I think as a matter of educating the board and getting us more comfortable talking about IT issues, that might be worth going forward with. I know we'll have further discussions.
Right, and we can have that further discussion later and figure out a plan of action. That's what I'm just giving you a report right now, whether you guys want to, try and take action or discuss it further.
Well, two questions. One, did Illini Cloud give you any references of school districts that we could call to talk about their?
No,
Actually,
I'm
the
sure
guy,
they could.
there's a couple,
Yeah.
there's at least one guy on the phone who was a district IT guy. I don't know.
They're all the first guy that I talked to. He's the director of IT for Murfreesboro School District down in Murfreesboro, Illinois. The other guy we were on the phone, he's the IT director for Bloomington, Illinois, down in the Bloomington Normal district. So they're all IT professionals.
But I'd like to hear from someone who is who receives the services, who is
Right.
not a part of their tech team or sales team.
I agree. That's something we can certainly ask. I'm willing to pursue that. However you guys want me to pursue
I
it.
don't quite
I'm ready.
understand this concept of co-op and how these independent people can do their own jobs, but then help us solve ours as well. I mean, can you explain that to me?
I mean, a presentation from them might be helpful to answer.
Yeah, and
that.
I think also just how they're financed. I mean, somebody had mentioned that they were
Financed by tax dollars.
tax dollars. I mean, it is expressly put together, from my understanding, to help school districts and on a cooperative basis. But
Pretty
maybe
different from LASI?
I don't know, but maybe that's like Lisa points out is what we need to find out and part of what they can present for us.
Reading the material, my feeling was that this was, a bunch of IT directors in various districts that were kind of tired of paying this price or only having, kowtowing to Apple consultants and not really, having group think. Mm-hmm. And so, while yes, they're IT directors, but their job is to try and give the most efficient resources at the biggest, best bang for the buck. And so I'm sure they probably met at conferences to try and pool resources and said, let's
There's
pool
a
resources.
state university component too that I'm not totally clear on, but
That's
they
what
do
I
get some funding from the state university system as
I
well.
was thinking they got some state funding,
And they
Right.
get state funding.
right? Just like Lassie gets some state funding, if I'm correct.
I think there's a lot of, I think it's interesting proposition, but I think there's a lot to learn,
All right.
before we can.
That would be the purpose of the presentation, and also they are not a substitute for, direction from our own staff or a consultant who can help us implement these solutions. I think whatever Illini Cloud might provide is only a partial solutions. And I think the point is to have them present, let's learn a little more, let's get a little more comfortable with it. But as part of that, I think we do need a complete sales or information on what their finances are. Do they have permanent staff? What are these various people who
Right.
who have day jobs? So what is the staffing there? And but I think at this point, it's just I think the proposal is to see if we can provide them with some minimal information to be able to give us a presentation, just so that we can learn a little more
About that.
about them. And
Because my other question is about what would it take for them to get to know us and,
Right.
and our needs?
Well-
And then be able to propose this is what you.
Yeah, I think it starts with our IT director, that they get together and, ask
Is there a cost
questions
to
and
that?
something. No.
Mike, I wondered, are they able to give us their list of, questions that would enable them to give us, a reasonably, can we
Maybe.
get that in advance?
Right, I think they'd, but, if they have more follow-up questions, I don't think it's a very cut and dry answer as far as yes or no, or 50 terabytes and everything like that. So if there's someone in the district that can talk to them directly.
Yeah,
That
but at
might be
least some
better.
kind of a roadmap of the issues I'd like to touch on.
Right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. I mean, we have other discussions coming up later on this evening, and I think after we have that discussion, we might have a better plan.
So,
All right.
I would just kind of ask or encourage us to direct our IT director to take this on as an initiative. I mean, it doesn't need to be on somebody else's plate. Perhaps he ought to be in charge of it, and we can have some other people sit in. But to have these discussions and not to have him participate, I think is foolish.
He has some level of knowledge, I think, about our, obviously he has knowledge about
Right.
ours.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to the next item, which also Mike is going to report on, the recognition event update.
We met, our committee consisted of myself, Patty Gill, Laura Lynch. Go ahead, shoot some names at me.
Jane Lawrenson, and Mary Jo Husky, and Kim Siemens.
Kim, very, very good. We met about 2 weeks ago on a Wednesday after school to discuss it. And look, we all share the concerns about cost, and I didn't know what to expect coming in. I expected I expected an open, honest discussion, but it really wasn't about the cost. I think what is driving the decision making what to do is how we can drive attendance up. And I commend the teachers for talking about it and acknowledging how we can drive attendance up without affecting the cost too greatly or even decreasing the cost. And the biggest concern I think that a lot of people don't attend is our theory is that it's at 6 or 7 o'clock that people who teach here that don't live in Riverside kind of have a conundrum is that after school, well, I got 2 or 3 hours before I go to this thing. Should I go home and change, or do I stay here, or what's going on? Boy, that's a long evening. What can I do? So our theory is that people don't show up because of the time that's later, and that maybe we should have it earlier at 4 o'clock, and maybe we should just have hors d'oeuvres and acknowledge the people who gave years of service to our district. And then maybe afterwards, if people want to go out to dinner with their own team or their own friends at the district, they can do that on their own. And what we're doing to test that theory out is we sent a survey out to the district staff to give us our response. They had until, was it this Friday, to complete it. And then coming up this Friday, we have a meeting to talk about our next steps.
All right, so that's our timetable next Friday, and
Correct.
then...
And we are really under no pressure right now to commit to the Riverside Golf Club, because last year in November at this time, that's what we did, and we have to cut a check. From what our research showed is we didn't make that commitment till January, and I believe that well before January we'll have something in place that hopefully will be better and more attended.
All right, thank you.
You could have these meetings at the different potential venues.
That-
That way you
Very good.
Thank you, Michael.
You bet.
All righty, future meeting dates are noted on the agenda, and was wondering if I might have a motion to enter into the closed session for the purpose of discussing items on the superintendent memo.
Second.
Yeah, the employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district or legal counsel for the district, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee or against legal counsel for the district to determine its validity. All right, and we will need a roll call vote for this.
Randy Brockway,
Yes.
Lisa Gaynor,
Aye.
David Kadama, Rachel Morella, Michael O'Brien,
Aye.
Arthur Perry, Mary Rose Mangia,
Aye.